And one. What up? What up? What up? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast, as Champ always calls it, the highlight of Friday nights. Unfortunately, one of our panels, BRF Sports, is not here tonight. He had to take care, be around his family. Hey, anytime. What better way to be around friends and family? So shout out to BRF. Please go check them out on Undisputed World Champs podcast every Saturday nights, 9 p.m. But of course, we can't do the Sports PSP podcast without Columbus, Georgia's own four-time college degree, number one Atlanta Falcons fan, also number one diehard New Orleans Saints fan, number one son in the world, Mama Champ. You may have to listen to Champ once in a while. You may have to stop watching the Dallas Cowboys, and you may have to shift to another team. Trust me, if you continue to watch the Dallas Cowboys, that should tell you something. Undisputed world champ. Also a diehard Joy Taylor fan on the side. But anyway, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good. That reminds me of that when Rocky Four, when they introduced Apollo Creed, when they had all them nicknames, the Master of Disaster, the Count of Monte Fisto. Yeah, that reminds me of that, man. That's a like I said, that introduction is very, very flattering and very honorable all at the same time, man. I'm humbled by that. But hey, man, look, you at 100,000 now, so I'm just saying, man, that's a lot to celebrate. Bottoms up on that one. So, hey, man, I got to give you a lot of credit, man. Hell of a job, man. Keep doing a good job. Like I always say in the comments on all the videos, Mount Everest ain't got nothing on you, brother. So, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm just happy to be here. It's always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be here.
Absolutely, man. But of course, thank you for hopping on to the Sports PSP podcast, as well as BRF, as well as a lot of people, Brandon from the block, and so many others for hopping on and contributing to the podcast. Y'all are the reason, as well as me, we already reached 100,000 subscribers. Huge, huge. I mean, from all the clips, shorts, and hopefully someday, we'll definitely make our money. We'll definitely monetize our content, and we'll definitely do some big things, man. But Champ, I'm gonna let you go first. Let's talk about the men's and women's national championship games. Obviously, the women's between UConn and South Carolina. I watched the entire highlights. Unfortunately, I couldn't watch neither of the national championship games, but I saw the highlights. UConn was just kicking South Carolina's ass. And then when you look at Sarah Strong, Azzy Fudd, had a big time game, not just only with her perimeter shots, her shot creation. I felt bad for Dawn Staley, the head coach at South Carolina. It's one thing to lose. It's entirely another thing to lose in the fashion and way they did. And with Florida, Walton Clayton Jr. didn't have the best game in the national championship, but boy, he definitely had some help along the way. I mean, if you look at the game, I'm reading the box score. Will Richard, 18 points, 8 rebounds. They had a comeback. So for anyone to say, well, you know what, Houston blew it and stuff like that. No, Florida, they just took it. I mean, and Dave, this is not the first time we've seen them do this before. We saw them in the Elite Eight against Texas Tech. We see them come back from big leads before. So I give a lot of credit to the young head coach, Walter Clayton Jr. Definitely improved his draft stock, if I believe. And what more can you say about UConn? What more can you say about UConn? But what are your thoughts, Champ?
UConn. Man, it was bleak at first. The thing is, people don't want to remember how Coach Gino was saying how NIL was kind of becoming detrimental to the game at a certain point. All the coaches were at first complaining about it. Then he found a way to use it to his benefit. And I'm grateful that he was able to do that. A lot of coaches can't evolve. A lot of coaches cannot evolve. And to see Coach Gino win to get his first title in the NIL era is nothing short of great, man. Coach Gino, in my humble opinion, is the greatest college coach of all time. He's the greatest college coach of all time. Men, women, whatever you want to call it.
Better than Coach K?
Yes. It takes a special type of personality not only to win, but to win and dominate in 3 different decades. Win and dominate in 3 different decades. Because as you know, generations change. You won in the 90s, you won in the 2000s. The 2000s was arguably his most dominant era. And the thing was, he wasn't alone in that era. Pat Summitt and a lot of other great head coaches were in that era. Then you get to this era. Coach Mulkey, Coach Don Staley. Everybody saying that Coach Staley is the new dynasty, is the new powerhouse. It seemed at the beginning of NIL that, Coach Gino had lost his mojo. Because like I said, there was a little bit of complaining on his part about how NIL has changed the game.
Kind of like Nick Saban.
Yeah, like the transfer portal, yeah. And he found a way to win in this era. And the thing is this. Let's not forget, at his peak, Coach Gino's team won 101 games straight. He three-peated twice. He has 12 titles over the span of 3 decades. And if you look at the Hall of Famers that are going to be in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, it's going to read like a who's who. And when you look at all the dominant players in the WNBA, half of them came from UConn. The faces that prior to Caitlin Clark of the WNBA all came from UConn. So much so that the late great Gigi Bryant, the daughter of the late great Kobe Bryant, wanted to go to UConn. Yeah, she was supposed to go there. And like I said, when you win across, it's one thing to win. When you win and dominate across generations, that's something to be said. He won in the 90s, dominated the 2000s, dominated the 2010s. Just as it seems like he had lost his mojo, here it comes again. And it's not over. Ossie Fudd and Sarah Strong, they're coming back next year. And I don't know if people have noticed this. A lot of these women's basketball players are staying in college.
Because obviously because of the NIL deals, and we had a discussion prior to that, Olivia Miles, she was supposed to go to the WNBA draft, but decided to transfer to TCU.
Mm-hmm. And so these young women are staying in college, and dynasties are being born, and it's great. Just that, like I said, just as you thought that this was going to be Don Staley's, era, which thus far it has, Coach Gino came in and just dominated. And and that team is loaded. South Carolina. They had McDonald's All-American players all over that team.
They did.
So for Coach Gino to win in that fashion, to not only beat the reigning national champions, and to dominate them at that, that's a short of amazing. As far as Houston and Florida, I told everybody on TikTok, that aura that the SEC has in football, I told them that it was coming to basketball during March Madness. And everybody called me crazy. They called me crazy. The SEC hasn't won anything in basketball since Coach Tyler Perry. He hasn't done anything. I told them, look, I guarantee that an SEC team is going to win the national championship in basketball. And lo and behold, the Florida Gators go out there and have a comeback. A comeback. It's just
magnificent.
And that fame from football just crossed right over into basketball. And wow.
You know
Wow.
that's that's something for a Georgia Bulldogs fan to be rooting for a Florida Gator. I know it's a different sport, but for you to be rooting for the Florida Gators to validate your point, that says something.
Well, the thing is this. I I'm just gonna be very, very honest. Georgia is not that good in basketball per se. They've had a lot of good players, Anthony Edwards, Dominique Wilkins, just to name a few, but we're not exactly a basketball powerhouse, if you
No,
want to.
I know that, Chad, but the fact that you support in Florida, that should say something.
Well, the thing is, I am a sports fan first and a Georgia fan second. I'm gonna say that again. I'm a sports fan first and a Georgia fan second. I root for sports. I am a sports fan, and I'm an SEC fan, and I love to see the SEC win. I love to see it. Now, granted, come football season, I hate you again, Florida, but for that team, I mean, and it wasn't just, and it's not just on the men's side, and it's not just on the men's side. The women's side, they have been doing
They
great
good
as
too.
well too. Yeah, they've been doing great as well too in the SEC. So I'm glad that Florida was able to come back and get a win. Unfortunately for Houston, the curse of Phi Slamma Jamma lives on. You cannot win. You cannot win that national championship. It just seems like you've been to three of them and you just couldn't win. And it's just that curse upon it. Just like every sport in the city of Houston has got from up under that curse. You saw it with, the late great George Foreman, how he won. You saw the Houston Rockets; they became Clutch City in the '90s. You saw the Houston Astros; they was able to win a World Series recently. But it's just like the Houston Cougars. No matter how good their team gets, they cannot seem to get over the hump. And it wasn't for lack of talent. It wasn't for lack of talent. They just got out coached. It wasn't for lack of talent. They just got out coached. They had a huge lead in the fourth quarter and just surrendered it, just got out coached. And it's just unfortunate for that Houston Cougars team that just cannot seem to get over the hump and win that national championship. It just seems like that curse that Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, Benny Anders, and those guys that they had back in the 80s is just crossed over and hit those guys just this week.
What'd you think about that last possession of the game?
Oh man, that was I'm just gonna be honest with you. It escapes my mind a little bit because I was just excited to see it. But it was kind of like it was close. It was close. It was close. But I just, like I said, I just wish that I hope that Houston one day can get over that hump in order to get a title. But that Fly Slamma Jamma curse is just alive and well. They just cannot seem to get over it, man. That is the coolest camera you're ever going to see right there. But hopefully they're able to get over the hump soon. I mean, people always say there's always next year, but there's just no guarantee you're going to make it this far. You saw the difference that a year can make with Coach Hurley. Last year he was at the Final Four. This year it was like kind of lackluster, if you will. But those two games were, one of the games was good and you were standing on the edge of your seat. The other one, it was just a coronation of dominance. Coach Gino has 12 national championships. He has done for women's basketball twice over what Coach Wooten has done. He did it twice over throughout 3 different decades. And so for him to do that over the course of 3 different decades, break Coach Wooten's records, not to mention, like I said, all of the Hall of Famers that I know he's going to have in the Naismith Hall of Fame, and that's excluding the team that he has now. That's excluding that team. Mm-hmm. There's potentially 3 Hall of Famers on this team alone that he's just won with. So I love to see it, man, because he's beating the best of the best. He's beaten Pat Summitt. He's beaten Coach Kim. He's beaten Coach Staley. Everybody who could be considered up to par with Coach Gino, he's beaten them and beat them handedly. So, I mean, and we can't forget about that rivalry between him and the late great Pat Summitt. So, I mean, Coach Gino is the greatest of all time. He's the undisputed GOAT of college sports. He's the undisputed GOAT. And especially if he ends up winning again in the near future, is everything from now on as a coordination. And these are records by Coach Gino that'll never be broken. They'll never be broken. Especially in this era of NIL, especially in this era of the transfer portal, where players are going in and out. And although these players are playing for 4 years in women's basketball, you just saw with Olivia Miles, she just left. You just saw with the player from South Carolina, she left. So with this era of the transfer portal, NIL, and everybody going to the highest bidder, it's going to be very, very hard to do what Coach Gino has done. Yeah, I saw that, K Witt, man. Shout out to K Witt and Witt Room Sports, by the way, man.
Yep.
Greatest intro in the world.
Mm-hmm. They didn't let Hakeem on the court for the celebration, and the basketball gods never forgave them. Gino said that the rest of the women's were supposed to catch up. NIL and the transfer portal is allowing that at a level they didn't even think of. And shout out to him. But that last possession, champ, for that Houston Florida game, that was bad.
Yeah.
Now, would I go as far as bad as my team, Michigan, in the 93 national championship with the controversial Chris Webber no timeout call? I wouldn't go that far. Nevertheless, that was a bad look, though.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you. We've seen a lot of bonehead plays over the course of history in NC2A sports. We saw the timeout. I don't know if you remember the downtown Freddie Brown pass where he passed the ball to the North Carolina player when he played against them. Yeah. And there's been a lot of bonehead plays in college basketball, but that one was one of the. I won't say it's on the level of the timeout or Freddie Brown, but it was up there. There's been a lot of bonehead plays, including those two, and that one against Houston was up there.
All right, man, but let's move on to another subject regarding basketball. The Denver Nuggets, shockingly, just a week before the postseason, the Denver Nuggets decided to pull off something that none of us anticipated, which was firing Mike Malone, the head coach, along with Calvin Booth, the GM. And Mike Malone, he was fired because it's been reported that he and Calvin Booth, the general manager of the Denver Nuggets, they weren't eye to eye. There's also been reports, particularly one from The Athletic, that players had issues with Russell, not only Jokic and Murray receiving preferential treatment, but also Russell Westbrook. Now, to me, with the preferential treatment part, I don't have a problem with Jokic and Murray receiving it because of what they are, what they mean to the organization, what they were able to deliver the franchise. We've seen it before with coaches being fired, champ, who just fresh off from championships. Mike Budenholzer with the Milwaukee Bucks. Nick Nurse was fired and ended up going to the Philadelphia 76ers. We've seen a pattern of this before, champ. I think what's shocking is the timing. We're this late into the season. We're just a week away from the postseason tournament, along with the NBA playoffs. And now you made the decision to fire them. And look, ownership, they feel like, and the statement from the owner, I'll pull it up in just a second. He feels like, you know what, it was just time to move on. And basically, this is the best chance for us to win a championship. Really, at this point in the season, when we're fifth in the Western Conference, the team is not as what they were defensively, champ. They're not. Defensively, last year, they were 7th in opposing points per game. They're 23rd. And you lost some key pieces, particularly Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Mike Malone, he leads with a 471, 321 record, which is a 59 winning percentage. and he was able to help deliver the Denver Nuggets their first franchise in history. So I wish they should have fired him after the season. That would have been a more professional thing. Has it happened before with coaches being fired? And what we've seen from the NBA champ, I mean, look, last year, even though he didn't win a championship, Adrian Griffin, he got fired during the season, and Milwaukee had a good enough record. And then he gets replaced by Doc Rivers. And Doc Rivers, I've said it before, he's got more opportunities as a head coach than the Kardashians have as far as dating men. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. I mean, no one has blown more 3-1 leads in the NBA playoffs than him. He's blown 3-2 leads before. He hasn't been to the conference finals since the lockout season back in 2011. Michael Malone, I believe he'll be back in the NBA as a head coach because you can't disregard the resume. He came back from not 2-3-1 deficits. Remember in the bubble, the first round against the Utah Jazz and then the second round against the Los Angeles Clippers. Jokic even admitted he knew that something was going to happen. So he wasn't shocked or dumbfounded like the rest of us who are looking from the outside. So he knew what was going to happen. So I am, again, it's this late into the season and you made the decision to fire him. And the GM, Mike Malone, Chris Broussard, he mentioned it on First Things First. He's old school. He will coach the players hard. And I think the players had a problem with it, with how the way he was treating them compared to Jokic and Murray. Sure, he's going to coach them, but he's not going to coach them as hard because of their status. So I do think there's a culmination of things, Champ. They're not what they were defensively. They're not the team they were a couple of years ago. The writing, it's pretty obvious between Booth and Malone as far as how the way they were during the workplace. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I'm going to just say this, and I hate to be the old man, get off my lawn, but let me look into the camera. Understand something, young men. Your cash cows are going to get preferential treatment. If you don't believe that, look at The Last Dance. Look at The Last Dance. It's evident on how certain players get special treatment. Remember, they said when Jordan caught that pneumonia cold or whatever it was, they sent the trainer and the medical staff to his home. Steve Kerr had to pick up his medicine. If you don't need any more evidence of how players, special players, certain players get preferential treatment, look no further than Phil Jackson giving Dennis Rodman not just the leeway to go on a 48-hour vacation where he hung out with Carmen Electra, by the way.
In Vegas,
drinking kamikazes all night long. Not only that, he was able to go on Monday Nitro with Hulk Hogan and the NWO. So your star players, I don't understand this. Look, everybody's not going to get treated the same. And you have to understand that. John Elway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Chip. It's history before. Let's not forget, you didn't have to bring up The Last Dance, Chip. We've seen players who haven't won a championship receiving preferential treatment. Remember James Harden? Remember that ESPN article by Tim McMahon? Whatever James wanted? And remember how James Harden tried to get himself out of Houston? Remember how he was looking? He looked like the skinnier version of you, coming fresh off the Hardee's, a Waffle House.
Yeah, coming fresh. He had about 3 of them all-star breakfasts, bro. He got the smother covered in top hash browns. I'm just going to be real. But your star players are going to get preferential treatment, man. I don't know what it is about these young players. He's getting special treatment. Of course, he's the best player in the darn league. What do you expect? Like I said, Dennis Rodman was able to go on a 48-hour vacation. Now, this is from the greatest play. This is the greatest coach, arguably, of all time. Phil Jackson was smart enough to let Dennis Rodman go on a 48-hour vacation and miss practice later on down the line in order to hang out with Hulk Hogan on Monday Night Raw. And he's one of the greatest coaching minds of all time. And that in the Chicago Bulls, one of the greatest teams of all time. If you really look back at it, even in Phil Jackson's own words, he said, my biggest regret in the first time around is that I didn't give Kobe the same treatment that I gave Shaq, because both of them was responsible for it.
Yeah.
So Shaq got preferential treatment. Remember, he told Shaq, hey, man, look, you've already a champion. Oh, don't worry about training your heart out over the summer, man. Come back in September. We'll work it out from there. And work yourself in shape over the... He told him that. So your star players are going to get preferential treatment. And when he was out, you know what he went and told Kobe? He told Kobe when Shaq was not in shape, he said, turn it up. And Kobe was going out there just launching it, go 40-point games. And then, you know, hey, man, the big fella working his way back into shape, man. Time to dial it back. So your star player, even the greatest coach of all time, arguably, I would say, was smart enough to get his players preferential treatment. Hell, even going back to Jimmy Johnson's days. You remember when he cut that player when he caught him sleeping, had all the stuff all around?
Yeah, I know. I know that. I know that one.
Yeah. And remember what the reporter asked him? He said, what if you would have caught Troy Aikman sleeping? He said, simple. I would have went back, tapped Troy on the shoulder and said, wake up. And then went right back to my seat. Every coach understands that his star players are going to get preferential treatment. So why these young guys don't understand that, I don't know. It seems like coaching has become a civic joke in the NBA. Whereas we cannot wait for the next offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator in the NFL to show his stuff. Like, we can't wait to see Ben Johnson in that offense this year. We can't wait to see Aaron Glenn in that defense this year in the Jets. We can't wait to see what that offensive coordinator who went to Jacksonville is going to do this year with Trevor Lawrence, because of how great of a job he did with Baker Mayfield. We can't wait to see that. In the NBA, it's just like, how do you fire a championship coach? Them doing this, the Denver Nuggets, them doing this is sort of equivalent to when Marty Schottenheimer went 14-2 and they fired him the very next year because he couldn't get along with the general manager. Our job ain't to get along with each other. Our job is to win these basketball games. Hell, Jerry Krause was smart enough to understand that. Hey, Phil Jackson, the man, I got to put my differences aside because this man is leading us to championships. So coaching has become a civic joke in the NBA. As far as player empowerment is concerned, I understand that, but understand this. When your star player gets preferential treatment, you can't get ticked off at that. It's kind of like us getting a contract and they say, hey, PSP, we're going to give you 3 Versace rolls, but we're going to give you some cola, champ. Okay, cool. That's fine with me. At least I'm on the show. Like, that's what happens.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't blame us for accomplishing what we do. I mean, heck, after all, people are going to get jealous. I mean, the thing is, champ, with players getting preferential treatment, that's just what it is. Yes. We've seen players who haven't won championships. I mentioned James Harden, who had preferential treatment. We've seen so many athletes get preferential treatment. As Shannon Sharp has often said, when production is high, so is tolerance. But when the moment they can replace you, they'll move, find someone else to replace you, then they'll move on, and then you'll be gone. Jokic, of course, was going to get preferential treatment. What the hell anyone thought? This is a 3-time MVP, soon to be probably a 4-time MVP.
Yes.
Jamal Murray, when healthy, is a great number 2 option. We've seen him perform in the playoffs before. Big-time shot creator, big-time guy for a guy who can hit clutch shots in postseason. Heck, you're a Lakers chef. Don't want to dwell on the past. Don't want to put you through pain, but that's just the truth.
Yeah.
But here's the thing with Russell Westbrook. Okay, Russell Westbrook was going to get special treatment because obviously he's going to the Hall of Fame. And of course, because of his personality. Here's the article from The Athletic. Players on the Nuggets began to lose faith in Michael Malone after he gave Russell Westbrook special treatment. Quote, all the while, Malone's choice to continue supporting Westbrook, despite the frustration he was causing on and off the floor, ultimately led to a loss of credibility among the players. It was one thing when Malone handled Jokic and Murray with more leniency than the rest of the group, but affording Westbrook that sort of treatment, even with his Hall of Fame resume, wasn't received well by some. You hear that, champ? What goes through your mind?
Russell Westbrook is on his way to the Hall of Fame. And the thing is, you have to understand something. There's people in this world you don't have to say a word to. I don't care if it's an exhibition game in April or garbage time in game 1 at the beginning of the season. Russell Westbrook is going to play hard. So you don't have to tell Westbrook what to do. You don't. So that's how come you get preferential treatment. If you know somebody, it's kind of like at work. When the boss knows this guy's going to show up and work hard and handle a million cases and pretty much run everything without having a title himself, of course he's going to get preferential treatment. And plus, Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Famer. And in a clutch situation, he's going to put himself and the team in the best situation possible in order to win. He's going to try his hardest to win.
Sometimes good, but sometimes bad, though.
I was about to just say that for better or for worse, but he's going to play his heart out.
Right.
So I don't understand all of this crybaby stuff.
Shout out to Ron.
Going on, Ron. I don't understand all this crybaby stuff. If a player gets preferential treatment, so what?
Okay, but here's the thing. I get that point, champ, but here's the thing. In fairness to the players, to play devil's advocate, they can look at it and say, Russ, you're new here to the organization. Yes, we know you're a Hall of Famer. Yes, you're a top 75 player of all time. You've won a league MVP. But at the same time, you just got here to this organization. And again, I read the report. They had issues with him on and off the floor. So it's also about establishing a culture and cohesion. Champ, do you remember the article from The Athletic about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? Remember how Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, how they picked and choose when they wanted to play, when they wanted to practice, how Kawhi Leonard was living in San Diego and how the team had to wait for him?
Yeah, I remember that.
So I kind of understand it from the player standpoint because, wait a minute, we've been here, we've established a culture, and you coming in here and you're causing frustrations for the team. How does that help the team? How is that conducive for all of us? So if the players have a frustration in that regard, I'm sure, champ, you could at least understand it. But at the same time, that's the part of the game. Athletes with resumes and who can still produce, we expect them to get that type of preferential treatment.
Yeah, and when you have a new player on your team coming into your team, it's going to cause frustration. It is, because you're not used to this guy. You're not used to how he plays or what have you. I give you a prime example of a player getting good treatment, and it was frustrating to the players at first, but once they got into the groove of everything, they was able to get everything right and win a championship. Remember when Clyde Drexler got traded to the Houston Rockets?
Yep.
When they were trying to repeat?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't particularly like him, especially Robert Horry. Robert Horry stated himself, I used to curse them out every chance I got. They traded my friend Otis Thorpe. This guy come in here, kicks his feet up, reads the Wall Street Journal, gets certain treatments because he's from the city of Houston. You wasn't here last year. We beat you last year when you played for the Trailblazers. In fact, you went to the finals twice and still lost.
Right.
But the thing is, when you're trying to win, then guess what? You make adjustments. The Houston Rockets made that adjustment, and guess what? They was able to win the championship with them. The thing is, when somebody new comes in, do they really need to adjust their attitude when they come in, or do you really need to adjust your attitude as they come in?
I think it's both, champ, because at the same time, look, you brought him in. You want to see at the same time, you want to work. You want to see at the same, I mean, when you have someone coming into your home or organization, okay, regardless of the problems that you have, fine, we'll make sacrifices for you, we'll make accommodations for you. With that being said, that's that the individual who is coming there can't be let off the hook, champ, because at the same time we're making sacrifices for you, we're doing our part to help you, but you're not doing your part as well. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I can't argue with that. But at the same time, you have to get where, like I said, a lot of times when somebody new comes in, it's the same thing with a job. They may not work the same as you did last year, or in this case, this year. It may not work the same. So you have to adjust your attitude. Everybody has that hard-nosed guy who comes into the job and he's a little bit of an overachiever, I would say. And the thing is, everybody knows that, but they're just their mindset. It's like, okay, this guy's a little bit of overachiever. We're not going to get onto his case like we would, let's say, Michael or whatever. I'm not going to get into his case like that. We know he's an overachiever. But at the same time, like you said, we're going to hold him accountable. But at the same time, we're not going to get on to him as much as the guys who are used to this culture. We're not going to do that. Like I said, a lot of time when someone new comes in, you have to adjust your attitude more so than they have to adjust theirs. Because guess what? You're getting used to them into your culture. You have to give them time to integrate themselves within the culture of your team, how you do things, how you work out. And even if they do receive preferential treatment, then that is what that is. Like I said, I'm from the old school. Coaches ain't going to treat everybody the same. It's just not going to happen. It's not. Coach didn't look, when I was starting, Coach treated me like I was a starter. When I wasn't starting, then guess what? I had to be at meetings on time. I had to do it. It's not gonna be this constant thing. And the thing is, the players need to stop complaining about it, because guess what? It's making the NBA look bad. I can't tell you the last time in the NFL or any other sport somebody won a championship. Somebody won a championship and was fired less than 2 years later. The only place where that happens is Philadelphia and Auburn. Those are the only two places where you can win a championship in football and get your tail fired. And that is an anomaly, those two places. In the NBA, it happens every other year. It's getting ridiculous at this point, where guess what? Everybody has these revolving door of coaches every other year. Championship coaches. You win it. The Denver Nuggets are one of the last team, or one of the 4 teams that was integrated from the ABA. People don't realize the significance of them winning a championship. There was only 4 teams that came over from the ABA, and the Nuggets and the Spurs were 2 of them, not to mention Indiana. So for that team to be only the second team from the ABA that was integrated in the NBA when the merger occurred, do you realize the significance of that? Do you realize the history that comes along with that? And now 2 years later, he's fired? All because players are complaining. The GM doesn't like him. So what? Jerry Krause didn't like Phil Jackson and often antagonized him. But guess what? They found a way to make it work. As long as we win it, winning cures all. Winning cures all. And the thing was, even after the 98 championship, where they said this is going to be the last year, even that year, Jerry Reinsdorf offered Phil Jackson another contract to come back the next year because they won. Went over Jerry Krause's head. So for the owner to do something like this right before a playoff run where you have a chance in order to win another championship, even as a fifth seed, does the organization really know what they're doing?
Apparently not. And the reason why they decided to let him go because of the All-Star break, because they were under 500 since they came back from their All-Star break, and then they lose like 4 or 5 straight.
Yes. But as a coach, that's going to happen at times.
No, it's going to happen, champ.
Figure out.
But as the ownership,
oh my bad.
No, it's all good, champ. But from an organization standpoint, why now? We're this late into the season. We're about a week away from playoffs and play-in tournament, and now you make the decision to fire your head coach and the GM. Now, if it were early in the season and if things weren't going well and if they had a bad record, then perhaps we can understand the firing. But we're this late, and Denver is already in playoff contention. Jokic might win the MVP for the 4th time in his career. If Denver didn't have any of these problems, if they were just winning games, champ, you wouldn't hear anything about Mike Malone being fired. And it seems to me with ownership, and you brought this up with Nico Harrison. Look, I still wouldn't let Nico Harrison off the hook, but it does kind of look bad on the part that that ownership is just sitting back, acting like nothing happened, and they're completely absolved. Now, look, that still doesn't let Luka off the hook because I still believe his conditioning has been a problem, but that doesn't mean you trade him when you don't even tell him. And all because, to your point, champ, the money. They didn't want to pay him that type of money, and along with other things.
These owners need to get it together because the ratings are already down. Now, NBA head coaching has become a joke. Back in the day, I'm not going to pretend head coaches did not get fired. We saw Paul Westhead get fired after he won a championship with the Los Angeles Lakers because, him and Magic did not see eye to eye. But they was able to get Pat Riley, and they was able to go on a run. And Pat Riley and Magic didn't always get along. Then you had Phil Jackson. He got fired by the organization because he disagreed with the fact that they were going to trade Shaq. Granted, he was hired back, but the thing is, he had no business getting fired in the first place. The problem is, these owners are, I don't know whether they're trying to be too hands-on or what, but they need to stop firing these coaches because the franchises are losing the stability that they once had. Once you win a championship, guess what? You deserve a hell of a lot of leeway when it comes to your teams because now you're proven. You're proven. You know how to get out of tight spots when all else is just, it seems lost. You know how to break the streak when we're in a 5 to 10 to 6 game skid. You've been here before in the playoffs where we're not doing so good and we're going to the playoffs. That's the thing. That's what happens when you fire coaches. You lose not only that, but the experience, the championship experience. The players can only do so much. Coaching can take you very, very far. And we've seen it. So these NBA owners firing, like I said, once certain coaches win championships in other sports, it's a while before they're fired. A good while. And even after they're fired, they pick up a job automatically because other teams see what they did to bring the other team a championship. Mike Malone is a darn good coach. Won your first championship.
Winning percentage of 59.
Not to mention, he went to the semifinals last year. Been to the conference finals before the championship.
Multiple times.
So you fired that head coach because he couldn't get along with the general manager?
Apparently, because again, they lost some veteran players and GM wanted to go into a younger direction, and Mike Malone wanted to keep the veteran players. And I can understand from Mike Malone's standpoint because of the veteran players, particularly Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who provides you perimeter shooting. You would know Champ because after all, he won a championship for your Los Angeles Lakers and gives you the perimeter defense. But the thing is the timing. We're this late into the season. We're about a week away from playoffs, and you pull this move. So essentially, what does it say? We talk about the NFL, no fun league. Seems like the NBA, no bull allowed. Hey. And when I mean by bull, you know what bull I'm referring to, because it seems like to me with coaches, no matter if we won a championship, and Champ, to me, even though it is shocking with the timing, but we've seen a pattern with these coaches getting fired.
Coach Budenholzer, Coach Malone, Tyronn Lue, Frank Vogel.
Yeah.
It's getting disgusting at this point. Because how does it look, a championship coach getting fired?
Players apparently have too much. Players have too much leverage or empowerment, and the moment when they voice their frustrations, and when ownership or management is aware of it, it seems like to me they want to let them go. And if that's not the case, what is?
I can't really tell you at this point. It's getting to the point where if all it takes for players to be complaining about a coach for them to get fired, then something's got to change. It has to. I understand player empowerment, but you mean to tell me that these coaches got along with these players all the time? No. Michael Jordan didn't always get along with Phil Jackson. He couldn't stand Phil Jackson when he first got there. Kobe didn't like Phil Jackson his first go around. You're not going to always see eye to eye with everybody. It's becoming a problem. Okay, this player said it's complaining about it. So let them figure it out. This guy just won a championship 2 years ago. He's already gone. And when you do that, you're setting your franchise behind. Because now that leaves your soldiers. Soldiers are nothing without generals, without senior leadership. So when you get rid of a leader like a coach, you leave your players in a state of flux because you don't know what the world is going on. They're adopting the one way of doing things, and now they have to adopt to another way of doing things. Game plans change. The way that you do in clutch situation changes. Who gets the ball last in certain plays change. That's
and ownership thinks at this point they're going to put themselves in the best position possible to win a championship.
They're going to put themselves in the best position possible to get themselves out of there in the first round. Because you're not going to have a lot of continuity. You're not going to have a lot of chemistry. This new coach that's coming in, he's never been a head coach before. And guess what? You don't know what's going to happen with this. Like I said, coaching in the NBA has become a civic joke. And it's not just player empowerment. It's these owners not stepping in and doing right by the team. If you don't look, I'm going to just be real. Jerry Reinsdorf, although he was hands off, let the players and the coaches figure that out. Let the players and the coaches figure it out. He just won a championship. And Denver hasn't had bad teams over the course of their history. They've had good teams.
Oh, yeah. Franchise. I mean, you look at 08, 09. You look at early on in the 90s. Remember when they were the 8th seed and when they knocked off the number 1 seed champ in the playoffs with Mutombo, rest of his soul?
Yeah, him and the great Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, a.k.a. Chris Jackson.
All right.
I mean, like I said, and my voice sound frustrated because it's like it's diluted. The ratings are already bad, and when you're firing coaches like this, it's just like, so where's the stability? So every time a player complains, we're gonna fire a coach when he just won the championship 2 years ago. You had the best player in the league playing his best basketball, and now we're gonna fire him 4 days before the playoffs start. The NBA is going to play themselves right into the same position that they were in back in the 70s. And this time they can't blame a lot of other things because the foundation was already there.
Very unfortunate for Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. Michael Malone, hopefully he lands back on his feet, finds another job. But this late into the season and they make this call, man. As Don King once said it, folks, only in America. Only in America. But champ, let's talk about more of a positive basketball. Luka Doncic, his first return back to Dallas. Boy, he gave the Mavericks a show, and he was locked in and emotional. When they showed the Dallas Mavericks tribute video of him, he was crying, and boy, he put on a show, man. He put on a show. 45 points in that game. Because of that, the Lakers secured a playoff spot. They're in the top three. They're in the top three in the Western Conference, champ. You are the Lakers fan. The floor is yours.
Luka. Look, Nico Harrison. Thank you for being so. Look for a kind word. Thank you for being so naive and oblivious, I will say, that you traded a championship right to the Lakers. Thank you. I don't know what this is, man. I'm so happy that Luka just went off on those guys. I mean, he came out there and just put on a show. But hey, the thing that says it all, other than Luka crying and stuff like that, other than that, another story of that game was Mark Cuban just sitting up there just having a conniption over there. It was just like, he was just having
Oh Lord.
He didn't take his medication that morning because it was just like, ooh, he was just like, it was just like they were stressing him the hell out. They were stressing him out. And there's been many rumors about Mark Cuban buying the team back, but I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. And my thing is, and I made a video about this, all of this has the feel of how the Seattle Supersonics left Seattle. All of this has that feel. And it's just like everything that is just it's like everything seems to be going wrong with this team. Luka being traded, Kyrie Irving, man, God bless him, tears his Achilles.
Shout out to our guy Casual.
That's Casual?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, okay. I thought he was Vanity.
Yeah, I mean, he was at one point, but anyway, continue on, champ. I mean, but a lot of moves lately.
A lot of moves. Hell yeah, Casual, the subject matter expert. Salute to you, brother. Yeah. It's I hate to see Mark Cuban like that, man. I hate to see Mark Cuban like that. Those fans deserve a lot better. It's
making Jerry Jones look good.
Look, I'm not gonna bring Jerry into this. Like I said, a lot of this has the remnants of what the Seattle Supersonics were doing in order to just satisfy themselves. Yes, that's Casual, all right.
Yeah, he's the only one who refers to his own team.
That's Casual, all right. Yeah, that's Casual, all right. But it has the feel of what the Seattle Supersonics were doing to themselves. Remember when they got rid of Sean? Remember when Shawn Kemp? They alienated him with that Jim McIlvaine contract, so they ended up trading him to the Cleveland Cavaliers with him and Bob Sewell, and they ended up with Vin Baker, who was very, very lethargic, and Gary Payton did not have anybody to feed anymore. Then they had that whole trade, that whole debacle with Gary Payton, them not wanting to renew his contract. So they ended up trading him, and he ended up going to the Lakers later on in the season. Then they traded Ray Allen later on to the Celtics. It was like they was doing and a lot of times with the media, when Kevin Durant got drafted and all of that, it seemed like they didn't let those players be out front and in the community and with the media. It seemed like they was doing everything they could to sabotage themselves because they wanted to move from Seattle to Oklahoma City. And ironic, it's because of the same thing. Remember, Seattle, the ownership was doing all of this because they wanted a new stadium, because Key Arena wasn't big enough. Because remember, at one point, they could have sold out every game for the next 3 years, sold out every game and sold out the concessions every game, and they still wouldn't have made a profit. That's why they was trying to get a new stadium. And it seems like the new owner, she wants to build a casino in her stadium. And the NBA and the city of Dallas said no. But now it seems like, okay, I will sabotage this team until I get what I want. In which the conspiracy theory, and I use that term lightly, the conspiracy theory is that she's doing all of this because she's trying to move to her real base of operations, which is Las Vegas.
Yeah, because there's been reports about them possibly moving into Vegas and turning them into a casino. But my thing is, champ, did you really have to trade Luka in order to do that? Did you really have to do something like this? Because before, we didn't start talking about much of basketball, the NBA, until this trade, because as you mentioned with the ratings, and for Luka, but back to Luka, I was very happy when he put on that show, because fans in Dallas, they'll never forget this. This to me is one of the shocking trades ever, because for a guy, Luka, 25, 26 years old, to be that productive, fresh off of making the finals, perennial all-star, perennial first-team All-NBA, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. If he retired today, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. And you trade him. And to me, I find it hard to believe Mark Cuban would have done that, because Mark Cuban obviously knows basketball, and Mark Cuban would be any team that had a superstar of a Luka Doncic would be stupid and foolish to make that trade. And perhaps Nico Harrison has gotten too much flack and criticism. They're using him as the scapegoat. Meanwhile, the organization is just sitting back. And to your point, champ, because we've mentioned this before, rest his soul, the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, he was the one who made the decision to move on from Shaq and build the franchise around Kobe, because Shaq at that point, he wanted $100 million. And Buss didn't want to pay him that type of money. And plus, Shaq had the weight problems at that time. So he was going to give that money ultimately to Kobe. But at least Buss admitted it. Buss wasn't afraid of making that type of move. And the thing is, with Dallas, I mean, it's a lot for them. It's been a turbulent season, not just with the Luka trade, Kyrie being gone for the rest of the season with the ACL, Anthony Davis with the injury. Klay Thompson gave you some flashes of what he was during his time in Golden State. And it's just unfortunate.
I think that a lot of these general managers and coaches, they get way too much blame for stuff that's out of their control. Remember, Bill Belichick had certain threats against him when the Cleveland Browns were moving. And you're really looking at the fans like, dude, I'm not even the owner of the team. The owner's moving the team. Don't blame me. I'm not a part of this. I don't own the team.
The reason why is because, champ, these owners, they're in the press box. You don't see them. They're not out front in front of your face constantly. They ain't Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, we know he's recognizable, not just because he owns Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Fresh off trading camp or even a game, champ, when they lose a game, win or lose a game, you see Jerry doing press conferences. What owner do you know actually does that right after a game? What owner do you know that actually has a podcast, that actually has weekly radio shows? Jerry. Say what you want about Jerry. I think he's cuckoo. I think he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That being said, at least he's willing to tell the truth. At least he's willing to give you his opinion, as crazy and idiotic as it sounds.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I admire about Jerry is he comes out and say the buck stops with me.
The buck stops with me. At least he's bold with it.
At least he's honest. If the thing is, you see these general managers, he's getting a lot of flack. But the thing is, I can't do this without signing off without ownership signing off. And you look, the thing is this: when you trade a player like Luka, because here's the thing, and here's why I blame the owner as well. When you trade a player like a Luka, a Shaquille O'Neal, or somebody like that, you're not only affecting the team, you're affecting the economy. And them owners are about that money. So not only are you affecting your team, you're affecting your bottom line. Luka has the potential to be the face of the league for years to come. Years to come. So in trading him, you just not only played yourself out of a great player, you played yourself out of a lot of economics. That's how come I blame the owner, because what owner in their right mind is going to play themselves out of economic capital with Luka being on the team? Luka, a generational player like that, brings in fans that are not even fans of basketball. That's why I'm looking closely, and that's why you're hearing all these conspiracy theories, because it's like, wait a minute. You're not only jeopardizing the team who just went to the finals last year, you're jeopardizing economics for your team. And for what? Why are you doing that? That's why you're hearing all these conspiracy theories. Imagine if at 25, Jerry Reinsdorf traded Michael Jordan. Imagine how much money the city of Chicago loses. Remember the amount of money that Cleveland lost economically because LeBron James went to South Beach? And remember how much LeBron was responsible for over $5 billion in economics to that team alone. And that's in a small market. Imagine how much Luka was responsible for.
And Dallas ain't no small market.
No, I checked. By a long shot. So you're affecting not only your team, who was a hell of a team, got to the final, but you're affecting economics, and you don't expect us to suspect any foul play. And the thing is, it wasn't just a trade. It was what you got for him. I understand Anthony Davis is one hell of a player, but he's not in his prime. He's been hurt a lot. I understand people are going to bring up, well, last year he played up 72 games. Okay, good. What he did before that?
Historically, AD is not known for staying healthy. Now, no. AD, when healthy, he is capable of giving you outstanding performances, but sometimes he'll give you some lackluster performances. Yes. The thing is, but it still doesn't excuse or justify the trade. And the thing is, how the way you handled it, which was totally unprofessional, because you didn't even inform. And normally when trades like that happen, it's usually the marquee player requesting a trade. not the organization deciding we're going to trade him. And even if Luka had weight problems or conditioning issues, which he should not be absolved for, because at the end of the day, he's a professional athlete. I said it. Luka, get your conditioning together. I mean, hell, you're making Champ look skinny. If you're making Champ look skinny, that says a lot about you. But I ain't trading him for nothing.
No, because look, I'm gonna tell you something. It's one thing when your conditioning affects your play and your availability. There's a huge difference between Luka's conditioning and Zion's. There's a huge difference. Luka's conditioning right now, and even when he's at his worst, doesn't affect his play. He's still putting up magnificent numbers.
There are much other problems. There's other differences between Luka and Zion off the court, but we won't go there.
Yes, we won't. But,
I'm sorry, but that's just the truth.
Oh man, yeah, but his availability and everything of that nature is not being affected, and his performance is not being affected. If it was, that would be one thing, but quite frankly, it isn't. He's been in all NBA every year he's been in the league. More than likely, he's going to be all NBA this year. And for that to happen and the ownership not being held to the fire, they're just trying to blame Nico. Yeah, you can blame him. But at the end of the day, what are you doing about that person who's up there in the box?
They ain't going to be fired unless they get involved in some serious type of scandal in which Adam Silver has no other choice but to step in and let them go, or push them to let them go, or sell the team.
Yeah. But look, regardless of what I may think about the trade, yes, it was crazy. It was wild. It was borderline ridiculous. But hey, I'm a Laker fan. I got to be thankful for it, because guess what? You may have just delivered us a tying 18th championship to our chief rivals, the Boston Celtics. And if that happens, I'm going to brag all day. And you can rest assured, if they are able to win a 18th title, there's going to be a lot of discussions, not only held about LeBron James, but about Luka as well. But, I mean, that was like I said, I don't think these owners are held accountable by the fans as much as they should. I mean, it's kind of, like I said, I compare, and I hate to go back into the past, I compare Nico Harrison to how they used to blame Jerry Krause for everything, when the only thing the owner had to do was step in. If Luka wasn't supposed to be traded, the owner would have stepped in.
I gotta blame Krause for Phil Jackson being fired as well, because remember, Krause's ego did get a little too out of control at times, in which he told Phil Jackson, I don't care if this team goes 8-2-0, you're gone. Or when, remember, they had the wedding and Phil Jackson wasn't invited, and the head coach that Jerry Krause wanted was going to be the head coach during the 98-99 season. So as much as I love Jerry Krause, champ, and I commend him for everything that he's done, I do think his ego got a little too out of control later in the end.
Yeah, but the thing is, do you see what happened at the end? Remember, Phil Jackson wasn't supposed to come back for the 98 season. Jerry Reinsdorf stepped in and gave him that big-time contract in order to bring him back for a year.
But Phil decided not to.
Yeah, even after he won the 6th championship. Because remember, Phil was on a 1-year contract on that. I think he got paid like 1 year, $8 million. Jerry Reinsdorf stepped in and said, you know what? To heck with what Jerry Krause saying, I'm going to step in and give you a contract. Then he stepped in again the year after and said, hey, I'm going to give you another contract. Let's bring everybody back. But the thing is,
go ahead.
Against the judgment of Jerry Krause. That's what I'm saying. Even during that moment where Jerry Krause wanted to do his thing, Ronsdorf said, hold up, this is my team at the end of the day. I'm going to do what I want to do. That's what I'm saying about ownership. If Luka was not supposed to be traded, then the owner should have stepped in.
Is it fair to say, champ, from an owner standpoint, not to excuse, they don't know basketball because they don't study or follow it the way that we do? Because I'm sorry, but champ, I'm sorry. It is what it is. What basketball fan, what expert of basketball do you know, male or female, that would approve your superstar player in Luka getting traded? And for the record, Sports PSP is not being, misogynistic or anything like that. But what person would you know that knows basketball, male or female, that would allow Luka Doncic to be traded?
Listen, even the most lamest person towards basketball knowledge knows who Luka Doncic is.
And you traded him.
Yeah. Even the most lamest person, even if you don't know basketball from a water bottle, you know who Luka Doncic is. And like I said, as an owner, and we have a woman, and it's a woman owner, you know who affects your bottom line. Even if you don't like the sport, even if you got in the sport because you know that the sport itself is always going to be around, you know who your cash cow is. And if you don't believe people don't know who their cash cow is, look what happened with the WNBA. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are on every single week. So you know who your cash cow is. You know who's going to be there for economics. You know who you can make public appearances with when you are out there at your country clubs and you are at these charitable events doing your philanthropy. So even if you are the most lamest person as far as being naive towards basketball or the product that you just bought, you know who your team is and you know who your cash cow is.
And ironically, you still make the trade.
Yes.
And again, champ, the reason why, again, I want to make it abundantly clear, Sports PSP is not claiming that women don't know basketball or anything like that. Let's just get that straight for the record. I would never say someone doesn't know basketball because of because of being a male or a female, because of their sexual orientation or whatever. I'm saying the fact that you made this trade tells me you don't know basketball. And even if you didn't know basketball, you know Luka's aura and platform, but you still made the trade regardless. What does that say about you? You don't really care.
Or you're trying to sabotage your team. One of the two. Or like you always tell me, PSP, when we're talking off the air, two things can be true. Either you don't know or you knew, don't care, and you're trying to sabotage everything for the sake of you getting your way. And you think about it, you're going to lose more money with Luka off the team than you would him on the team.
Especially in Dallas, champ. Because at the end of the day, even though the Mavericks, they've won a championship, they have Dirk Nowitzki, first ballot Hall of Famer. It's still the home of the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't think this owner realizes or understands the politics in Texas, because say what you want in terms of basketball, that is a football state. Yes. We know that. Pee Wee, Pop Warner, high school, college, eat, breathe, sleep football. Now you got two teams in the SEC now, Texas and Texas A&M. The rivalry, of course, the money, the ratings that is going to get. And how is Dallas Mavericks going to be marketable without Luka? Sure, Anthony Davis is going to be there, but we know he's going to miss a majority of games due to injuries. So you didn't factor that.
Not to mention, you have another team in your town that just made the playoffs. SMU.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, SMU. And you got a team in the Western Conference, who was miles away in Houston, they made the playoffs.
Yes.
So what is that? So what does it say?
So you have a lot of things to compete with in the city of Dallas. You have it being a football town, number one. You have it being, and the nightlife is beautiful for what I heard.
Oh, it is.
I've never been to Dallas, but from what some friends of mine have told me, it is beautiful.
I have. It's beautiful.
For real.
I have. Talk to Mama PSP. Shout out to Mama PSP. She's in Florida right now visiting her mother. Shout out to Mama PSP. She and my stepfather, they took my brother and I to Texas. We actually even saw Cowboy Stadium and everything.
Nice.
It's as advertised. I mean, I've saw the Jumbotron, everything, man. Dallas is a beautiful place to be in. Plus the food, champ. You'll love the food there. Great barbecue. I know you would love it there. Not to mention the atmosphere.
Yeah. But you have a lot to compete with. Dallas is a football town. So you have the Dallas Cowboys, you got the SMU Mustangs you have to compete with.
Texas Rangers.
Texas Rangers. Yeah. Yes. The Texas Rangers, and they're doing, from what I'm seeing, they're a pretty good team this year. So you got all of that to compete with, and you just took away your greatest asset. That just lets me further know either you don't know basketball or you're trying to sabotage it.
Sleep at the wheel.
Because even with Jerry Jones, he's trying to keep his big time, even though he knows they're not going anywhere fast, he's trying to keep his big time players on that team. His most recognizable faces. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott.
At least he paid them their money. And he's possibly going to pay Micah. Yeah. But the fact is, you trade Luka. Now, is it because, champ, that $300 million contract, and because they didn't want make Luka that type of money? Even if Luka had the weight and conditioning problems, you don't trade a player of that caliber. And shout out to Sports Shots Pod. Let me show you the comments. They're from Texas, Houston. And their old high school they played at was at the AT&T Stadium back in Arlington, Texas. Yeah. So, I mean, it's nice they're playing in nice they're being at that Cowboy Stadium. But, champ, again, I want to make it clear, because the owner is a woman. I am not saying that women don't know sports. I would never say that. So I want to get that straight on the record, because I don't want people taking me out of context and accusing me of being a misogynist or stuff. I'm saying the fact that you traded a 25, 26-year-old generational talent in a Luka Doncic, for whatever reason, to me, you don't know basketball. And even if you didn't know basketball, you know what an asset Luka is on and off the court. And you're competing not only in your city in Dallas, but in your state in Texas, when we know Texas ain't a shabby place to be in. No state income taxes. If you go to places like Dallas, if you go to Houston, if you go to San Antonio, Austin, there's some nice places to be in, particularly the restaurants and stuff like that, the bars. And you're trying to do everything you can to make your money. And here you are, you trade your moneymaker.
Even if you gave him that $300 million, the amount of money that you're going to receive back from revenue, from fans wanting to crowd into the stadium in order to see Luka, is a small price to pay. It's a small price to pay. Because look what's going to happen. SGA is about to get that in Oklahoma City, and they're a smaller market.
And plus, we've seen players in big markets got that $300 million. You saw Jaylen Brown, and then the year before, Jason Tatum, fresh off from winning the finals.
And like I said, look at how that worked out. But like I said, even if you give them the $300 million, the amount of money that he means to your team is a small price to pay for that. Mm-hmm. It's a 25-year-old superstar that has been all NBA every year since he's been in the league. We have not seen that since Grant Hill.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Sports Shots. He said the Luka trade. I think he was referring to that was by far the worst trade in Texas history.
Yeah, that is by far. And for that to happen, it's inexcusable. And like I said, we need to start looking at these owners a little bit more carefully than automatically blaming these general managers and or the coaches. Because at the end of the day, these owners have to sign off. And like I said, if Luka was not supposed to be traded, he wouldn't have gotten traded, especially for the low price that he got traded for.
Well said. Chip, let's move on to some football. Mel Kiper Jr., he actually has Shedeur Sanders falling to 9th to the New Orleans Saints. By the way, for those who may not know, New Orleans Saints, don't let Disputed World Champ walk around the streets of New Orleans unless you want him to wear a Saints jersey, which I find it hard to see him wearing a Saints uniform anytime soon. I just don't see it. I mean, this is Champ's reaction if he actually wore a Saints jersey.
Where the hell did you get that from?
Your IG profile.
Woo! Good God! Now that. Woo! Good God! Hold on, man. What in the world? That is priceless. That is amazing.
That's you right there giving the Saints fans the deuces. Nah, I ain't gonna be wearing that Saints uniform. But if you show me to a spot for daiquiris and po' boys, I'm your boy.
Oh my God. PSP, what am I gonna do with you, man? Like I said, you're like a brother to me because that is amazing.
And at least it's better than this one.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to forget that.
I actually like it, Champ. I understand Mel Kiper Jr.'s point on Shedeur Sanders falling to New Orleans. Think about it. Shedeur is not known for having the strongest arm in the world. Okay, New Orleans, it's indoors. We've seen Drew Brees before. And again, I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders is going to end up having the same career as Drew Brees. But Drew Brees, remember that torn labrum in which he suffered during his last time with the San Diego Chargers. Only 2 teams that wanted to take a shot with him. The Dolphins and the Saints. And he chose the Saints. So with Shedeur Sanders, again, not known for having the strongest arm in the world, he could play indoors. Second of all, Kellen Moore is the head coach. This is his first year there. Derek Carr, it's been reported that he has a shoulder injury.
Yes.
And Spencer Rattler, at best, raw. So if you're Kellen Moore, if this is your first year as a head coach, and if you want to have some success, you might as well take a shot at Shedeur Sanders. Because Derek Carr, the only reason why he went to the Saints is because of Dennis Allen. Because of their relationship going back to the Raiders. And Derek Carr, they paid him a ton of money. He hasn't lived up to it. So if you're New Orleans, do you want to go with Spencer Rattler? Or would you rather go with Shedeur Sanders? And there may be a possibility Shedeur Sanders might start. You never know. And then in that division, Champ, look, Atlanta, you better win this division. You better win this division. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you don't win a division, Champ's probably going to have to organize a boycott and probably not going to any Waffle Houses or Magic City anytime soon if they don't make the playoffs. Because you had every reason to make the playoffs last year. Kirk Cousins came in. They were 6-3, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions the first half of the season. And then they fell off primarily because of Kirk Cousins turning the ball. We could understand in 2022 because you look at the quarterbacks in that division. I only said Derek Carr was the best one on paper because Bryce Young was a rookie, Baker coming off his fourth team. And can I interest you with the Atlanta Falcons, Taylor Heineke, and one Desmond Ritter, who undisputed world champ has often said Desmond Ritter couldn't pass gas even if you fed him refried beans. So I actually like it for Shedeur Sanders to go there. Plus, you have some good and got some weapons. Ray McLeod. You have Alvin Kamara there. So a young team with a young quarterback. Hey, big market there. I mean, even though New Orleans is small, but New Orleans, good place to get your grub on. Good place to hang out and enjoy the lifestyle and the culture. I mean, of course, the hip hop, the jazz. I wouldn't mind Shedeur Sanders going to the Big Easy just to see champs face and say, damn, I got to deal with Shedeur Sanders each and every single year, man. But it's either the Saints or Pittsburgh because they need to get a quarterback unless if they try to foolishly go in a different direction and get Aaron Rodgers, which I hope that's not the case. But champ, what are your thoughts?
I will as much as I hate New Orleans, the Saints, the Aints. I would love to see Shedeur there. I would love to see him restore newfound hope to that city. I would love to see him and MPJ go at it for the next 10 to 15 years. I think that Kellen Moore is a pretty good coach. He'll be able to guide them along, and it'll get them out of that cap hell eventually. Although, you might hate a team, you hate to see it. Sometimes it's just me. You don't get anything out of it beating them when they ain't competitive. When you beat them when they're competitive, it's just all more the sweeter the victory. It doesn't really like have the same luster when it's a circle win. Circle win is when you look at the schedule, you just circle that team. Like, hey, I know if we won't win no game, we're gonna win that one. But I would love to see Shedeur at New Orleans. Not only that, man, you got to think about this. Opportunities are going to be there because guess who was at the game during his time in Colorado? Master P. So guess what? Who better to give you opportunities in New Orleans than Master P? Master P has his own chips. He has a little bit of everything. Got his hands a little bit of everything. One of the last of the 90s moguls in hip hop.
Who has been to Colorado? Who's been to a couple of Colorado games himself and is tight with Prime. So you never know.
Yes. So, and if he comes to New Orleans and Master P's there, he's going to roll out the red carpet for Shedeur. So I would love to see that. I want to see them build around him, give him some weapons, and see what he does throughout his career. I would much rather see him in Pittsburgh simply because I know the coaching that he's going to get. I know that Mike Tomlin is one hell of a coach. I know that organization is a hell of an organization. So I'd rather see him in Pittsburgh or even Los Angeles as far as the Rams are concerned. Because I would love to see him get, coached up by Sean McVay. Remember, Sean McVay coached up Baker Mayfield. And now look at what he's doing now. So him in New Orleans would be a great thing. I know people are going to say it's a small market, but it's bigger than what everybody put it as.
Oh, it is.
Yes, it's bigger than what everybody put it as, And I think that would be a good thing for New Orleans. Start from scratch, get you a quarterback that's going to be with the team for some years. No more retreads, no more of the bad contract with Derek Carr or any of these other quarterbacks. I like Spencer Rattler, but he's too much of a risk taker, too much of a gunslinger for my taste. And I think that you need to start off fresh, not just to get you more talented players, but to keep you out of cap hell. Remember, New Orleans was over $100 million over the cap at one point. which I think they're under it now, but it was bad at one point, real bad.
I think this would actually go well, champ. Because if at the end of the day, if you're New Orleans, what is there to lose? You're not gonna win. You're not favored to win the division. You playing on what, house money? And look, man, if you bring in Shador Sanders to reinvigorate that, not only that organization but that city, with Prime as his father, even though he's in Colorado, can you imagine how many people gonna be attending them Saints games?
Yes.
And plus, you're gonna be hearing Juvenile back that ass up song. You're gonna hear all that New Orleans style culture, man. I'm telling y'all, New Orleans is a beautiful place to actually visit, man.
Yes. You told me about that a long time ago. I got to get out there, but I think that'll be great.
But you better be careful though, because again, they'll probably see once you start wearing Falcons gear and stuff, they'll probably start harassing you.
Oh, they egged one of my homeboys' car. Shout out to Josh, my guy Josh. You know, one of my best friends here in Columbus, man. They egged this car because he had all the traffic stuff on there, which understandable. They egged this car, but hey, I'd love to see that, man. Like I said, start off fresh, get you a young quarterback in there, build it the right way. You know, you caught lightning in a bottle with Drew Brees, but you got to think about how often does that really happen. How often do you get that free agent quarterback that you're gonna catch lightning in a bottle with? It's very, very rare. So go out there, get you a rookie quarterback, build the team up. You've proven that you can draft well. You do have Chris Olave. You do have a few weapons there for him to play with already. Get you a franchise quarterback that you know is going to be there for a while, and stop playing around with the franchise and put them in cap hell with these bad contracts.
Let's continue on with the draft, champ. Titans. It seems to me it's pretty clear they're gonna go with Cam Ward unless some team in the NFL decides to pull off the trade. I think they should draft Cam Ward because I think if he's that talented, that good enough, and if you're that high on him, then of course you should take him because you want to deal with Will Levis for another year. And you talked about on the pod, and I already released the clip. You talked about how a lot of these young quarterbacks come into the NFL unprepared because for whatever reason, whether they're not studying or watching film or not understanding, the NFL has done their part to make changes for the game. I mean, we discussed it last week with the touchback rule. We discussed it with the technology and everything else. Do you think that the Titans should draft Cam Ward?
Yes, I have no faith in Will Levis. And if you really want me to be honest, it was a flyer, him going with the pick that he went with. I've been on record of saying when Anthony Richardson and Will Levis came out of the SEC, I had no faith in either one of them, and they were a reach. They were a reach. They didn't do much when they were in the SEC. And when you can't do anything in the SEC, what makes you think you're going to be able to do it in the NFL? It's just pure science at this point. Anthony Richardson was not that good. He was considered a project quarterback even coming in. Will Levis was not that good. Matter of fact, the last year, he didn't throw for 300 yards not one time during his last year at Kentucky. So what made teams think that this was the guy? And granted, we love to show these quarterbacks, hey, he's able to throw a country mile. Yeah, everybody's able to throw a country mile when, guess what? You ain't got them defensive linemen and them linebackers in your face. Everybody can throw it in. In great words to Mike Tyson, everybody got to play until they get hit in the face.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they need to go ahead and move on. They have not had a legitimate quarterback for a very, very long time. I'm talking about a franchise quarterback that you can build around.
The last one they had was rest his soul, Steve McNair.
Yes, indeed. That was the last one that they had. that they could build around, and he was there for years to come. So you need to get you somebody else in there so that you can build this franchise so what you know it can be.
I would like to make one recommendation for NFL teams because I forgot to mention it last week on the pod with the rule changes. They're now incorporating the throwback uniforms, so they can wear the old school throwback uniforms 4 times. Can you please go back to them old school Titan uniforms back in not only like in the 80s and the 90s, but in the 2000s as well? I like them old school Titan uniforms.
Yeah,
that was good back in them days. I'm talking about at the time when they went to the Super Bowl and lost, of course, to the St. Louis Rams. A lot of changes needs to go back to the NFL. I mean, I would love to see a franchise back into the city of St. Louis, because even though St. Louis is not the attractive, sexy market, but you had some diehard fans. And I remember them days with Nelly. Remember the music video that he did, the Air Force Ones with Marshall Faulk?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I watched them days back on 106 Apart. Those were the good old days. So they need to go back into doing those types of things.
Yes, they do. And what's so funny about St. Louis? They lost two different franchises.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost the Cardinals and they lost the Rams. So that was crazy. And which I understand how horrible the team was, but still, it was just at one point in time, St. Louis was the center of the universe.
It was.
It was the center of the universe. The greatest show on turf.
Turf.
Yes. You're not going to see a better offense than that. I don't think for a long, long time.
Not just that, you also had a Hall of Famer at the offensive line champ, Orlando Pace.
Yeah. And let's not forget Kyle Turley as well. Kyle Turley was darn good guy. So, yeah. I really think they should bring back the throwbacks. I love those old school Tennessee Titans uniforms. I love the Houston Oilers ones a lot better, if you want me to be honest with you. But, hey, bring those uniforms back, man. Bring them back, and let's see them a little bit more. And educate the young fans about why they were, because I don't think people understand how instrumental the Houston Oilers and the Tennessee Titans were in the NFL AFL merger. They were just as instrumental as any other team. In fact, they were one of the original AFL teams.
Yes. Speaking of which, regarding Derek Carr, Carr has 2 years left remaining. I'm reading an article here by ESPN's Catherine Terrell. Mm-hmm. Carr has 2 years left remaining on the contract he signed back in 2023. However, a source told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that he was open to testing the market earlier in the offseason. The Saints ended up restructuring his contract, instead effectively tying him to the team through the 2025 season. The Saints, they have the 9th overall pick in this month's draft and have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, which is Carr, Haener, Spencer Rattler, and Ben DiNucci. And they have about $27 million in cap space available if they want to sign a quarterback. So if I'm New Orleans, I would consider drafting Shedeur Sanders because, hey, I ain't got nothing to lose. And if I lose Carr, do I want to go with those 3 quarterbacks I just mentioned? So that's about it. All right, champ. Let's talk about one of our favorite topics on the show that the Sports PSP, as you called me before, the New Jersey Genius, came up with: babyface or heel. Now, for those who may not know what babyface, heel means in wrestling terminology, babyface means good guy hero, heel means bad guy villain. Also, a tweener is in between babyface and heel. So I came up with some athletes or celebrities, and myself and Champ are going to decide which one is a babyface or a heel. Champ, I'll let you go first on this one. Baker Mayfield.
He's a babyface. No. Let me hear me out on this.
Okay.
When he first came out of Oklahoma, it's safe to say that he was a heel then, considering his attitude, his cockiness, the things that he did at the Kansas game, him, getting into a little bit of trouble. it's safe to say when he came out, and not to mention, him and Colin Cowherd used to have a war of words. I mean, him and Colin Cowherd used to have a
Well,
war
I
of words.
remember.
So it's safe to say when he first came out, he was a heel. Everybody was talking about how cocky he is. He's cocky. But the thing is this. When you look at what he was and what he is now, it's like a 360. You don't hear the cocky. People always are going to say, yeah, he's cocky, but you don't hear it as much in the press conferences as you did when he was in Cleveland. You don't hear, I woke up feeling dangerous as much as you did when you were in Cleveland. Although he's still that same player that goes around swinging his arms, celebrating with his teammates and doing all of that, it's more of a quiet and control bravado now than it was when he was in Cleveland. And everybody wants him to win just to shut up Cleveland. Everybody wants him to win. Remember, me and you have been on record saying this not once, not twice, but dozens of times. Cleveland Browns want an adult in the room. Ooh. So when you think about that statement and how he was able to get coaching in Los Angeles in the form of Sean McVay, go to Tampa Bay where nobody expected anything from him. You're able to win 2 back-to-back division titles. You was within one play of going to the NFC Championship against the Detroit Lions. One play. You have to be a babyface, but guess what? You went through those growing pains of being cocky. You went through those growing pains of being the number 1 overall pick, playing for a bad organization, someone wanting you replaced, the media getting on to you. I haven't heard a bad report about Baker Mayfield in a very long time. I haven't heard a bad report. You hear reports about him being cocky still, but the thing is, you don't hear about it as much as you did in Cleveland.
More importantly, you don't hear any off-the-field issues regarding Baker. You actually hear him doing a lot of good things in the community. Remember, I think I sent you this, champ, something about a donation regarding a football team.
And they won the state championship the same year.
Oh yeah, that's right. He gave them the money for the equipment and everything.
Yes, and they won the state championship that very, very same year. So the thing is, yes, it's safe to say you coming out of college and some of the antics that you had in college, yeah. But the thing is, you went through that maturation process of growing up, of knowing, okay, it's okay to be cocky, but I don't have to be arrogant about it. There's a huge difference. And not to mention, although you have not stepped in and replaced the great Tom Brady, who is the GOAT, you're actually winning. And you're picking up where he left off as far as winning football games are concerned, although you haven't made that next step and won a championship. You're looking more like the number 1 overall pick than you ever did when you were in Cleveland.
And he had some good times in Cleveland too, particularly his rookie year and his third year.
So the thing is, for all of the quote-unquote cockiness that he did, for all of the quote-unquote antics that you heard about when he was in Oklahoma and you saw when he was in Oklahoma, it's been almost a 360 turnaround now that he's in Tampa. And like I said, Colin Cowherd has to be beating his head against the wall because he is holding on tight to that Sam Darnold argument. And Baker Mayfield keeps just knocking it out of the park. And I'm proud of Baker Mayfield. Like I said, he was within one play of going to an NFC championship last year.
Not to mention, you talked about his time in OU, how he almost gave you a heart attack in that semi-playoff game.
Yes, the heart attack game part 1. So yeah, they gave us fits during that game. You know, him, CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Joe Mixon, all those guys. Those guys gave us fits during
Mark
that game.
Andrews.
Mark Andrews, one of the greatest teams in college football history, not to win a national championship.
Coincidentally, kind of like with Oklahoma City, greatest talent that never captured the finals.
Yeah. But I have to put Baker Mayfield as a babyface because, like I said, he went through that process of being this cocky, arrogant, the world is mine, Scarface type of character. And now, although he is still that exciting guy that we love to see on the field playing with his teammates and stuff like that, he's toned it down to a minimum. You don't hear as many reports as you did before. So I have to put him as a babyface. Like I said, plus we want to see him win just to spite the Cleveland Browns and what they did to him unjustly, I would say.
You make a very valid point, Champ, on all the reasons why Baker Mayfield might be a babyface. I still would lean towards tweener because Baker, to your point, does have that cocky attitude, and have been critics, particularly Shannon Sharpe, Colin Cowherd. Now, there's no bigger critic of Baker Mayfield than one Colin Cowherd. I mean, Baker, we all know his history at Oklahoma, the Kansas game, when before the game started, the coin toss in which the Kansas players refused to shake his hand. And then during the game, he's grabbing his you-know-what. Then you look at the NFL early in his career, Cleveland, the situation between him and Hugh Jackson. Remember some of the things he said about Hugh Jackson, and then the progressive commercials and things of that nature. But Baker, you feel happy for him to have back-to-back Pro Bowl caliber seasons, turning his life around. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, we talk about how the Houston Texans are getting the last laugh. Baker Mayfield is getting the last laugh because you traded 3 first-round picks just for Deshaun Watson, furthermore giving him $230 million. And you talk about my character or behavior when, wait a minute, hold up. Say whatever you want about me. Yeah, I could be cocky. I can be arrogant. I could be a prick here and there. But Deshaun's? Have you forgotten about his off-the-field issues? And yet you still want an adult in the locker room or at that position. I would say tweener because Baker still has some of that cockiness in him. And again, Champ, there are going to be some critics, particularly Colin Cowherd or anyone else that's going to say anything about him. And Baker, I think Baker should be more conversations of top 10. Considering how well he has played these past 2 seasons, you have to at least consider him a top 10 quarterback. And they're going to look at him as a tweener because Cleveland Browns, you had a chance to go with either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. And unfortunately for Baker Mayfield, that's what he's going to have to deal with because 2 of those guys, although they haven't captured a championship, but 2 of them combined have 3 MVPs. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen 1, Lamar Jackson 2. Lamar Jackson, statistically, best year of his career. Better than actually, in my opinion, the first year when he won the MVP. And he didn't win the MVP. Matter of fact, you even said MV3 for Lamar. I had Josh Allen. I think that's the other reason why people are going to hold that against Baker Mayfield. But if you actually look at it at the time in Oklahoma, Baker was the proven guy. Even though Lamar Jackson won a Heisman Trophy, remember Bill Polian, remember what he said, the great Bill Polian about Lamar Jackson coming out of college. Josh Allen, was it because of the competition at Wyoming or also because of the fact that as a passer, he was raw. He wasn't as refined. He wasn't as good as he is right now, Champ. And when you look at Baker, he's a heel because, again, there's going to be critics of him, particularly Colin Cowherd, and they still don't like his brash and cockiness. But he's also a babyface because, hey, teammates, they love him. You haven't heard a negative thing about Baker since his time in Tampa. Baker is now a father now, so he's pretty content. He's really happy with fatherhood and being in Tampa. A lot of great things he's done for the community, and Baker Mayfield has a lot of promise. And also, what's so unique about Baker, he does. I mean, it's kind of like with Shawn Michaels. He may not be as talented as Shawn Michaels, but again, he's the little guy that has the huge chip on his shoulder. And he feels like, watch what I can do. And Baker is capable of giving you some big performances. So when I look at Baker, I think he's a tweener. He's a baby face because people do like him. People do feel bad for him after what happened in Cleveland and getting his successor in Deshaun Watson. But he's also a heel because at the same time, there's going to be critics like Colin Cowherd and others that will say negative things about him.
Yes, indeed. And like I said, Colin Cowherd literally tried to bring that young man on the show and embarrass him. But, to no avail. And
Don't you find that ironic? Don't you find ironic though, Champ? He bashed Baker Mayfield more than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. But the thing was, I don't even give him a pass on that. He said Josh Rosen was going to be better than Lamar Jackson. So that just goes to show you how smart some of these commentators are. And that dude didn't even last for about 1 year.
He moved on because remember the following year, and shout out to our guy Donnie, diehard Arizona Cardinals fan. They had the number 1 overall pick in 2019 and drafted my other OU brother, Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, so that doesn't say too much about his judgment because he's like, yeah, he's not Josh Rosen. Go back and look at the footage. So that doesn't really say too much. I mean, everybody knew that Lamar Jackson was going to need some polishing, just like Josh Allen. A lot of those quarterbacks in that draft class were raw, including Baker. So, especially because of his height. So, each one of them needed some polishing. But for him to just go all off on a limb and just kept talking about Sam Darnold during that time, and even after Baker Mayfield made the playoffs, you still tried to put him in a bad situation. Still try to put him saying, I don't respect you because, your hat is turned backwards towards the logo when you go to the press conference. Who cares? Can you play football?
Quarterbacky, as he calls it.
Yeah, I don't know. What the blue blankety blank does that mean? Quarterbacky. What that mean? I don't know what that means.
Honestly, Champ, I don't know what the fuck that means. That's just bullshit.
I don't know what that means. What in the blank does that mean? Quarterbacky. Okay. I mean, you want me to just be in front of a Wheaties box all day and drink milk like Otto Graham long list to do? What do you want me to do? What is your when they say stuff like that, what is your definition of quarterbacky? I don't know what that means. I still don't know.
I don't know. I think this is a pretty obvious one. Ndamukong Suh.
Oh man. He was a heel for the 25th power.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it depends on who you ask. I mean, he's a heel in our views, but you got to ask yourself this. Would he have been a heel, let's say, in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s?
No, he would have been accepted because we all know how violent it was back then. But because of the era and you're looking at the context the way I'm looking at it as well, Champ, he was a heel. But Ndamukong Suh as the football player, he was dominant, Champ.
He was dominant. But
Do you remember the Big 12 championship game against Texas?
Yeah, he was dominant. He was very, very dominant. He was borderline cheap, though. He's borderline cheap. Remember the things that he did with Aaron Rodgers,
Oh, when he stepped on Aaron Rodgers' leg on the Green Bay game?
And then the other stuff. So, yeah, he's an undisputed heel in my opinion. But like I said, he's a heel because of the time that we live in. If he would have came along, let's say 20 years earlier, or even a decade earlier, we probably would consider him a heel. We probably wouldn't consider him a heel. He was dominant at that time. He was dominant. He was great. And it took, and he finally got on the Super Bowl ring too.
Yeah, in Tampa.
Yeah.
But you know what? With Suh, unfortunately for him, I believe you'll make a case for him being in the Hall of Fame. I have no problem with it. I wish Suh would have become what Aaron Donald was.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times complacency kicks in, and I think his size, the thing about that, he outweighed his height. That height differential was freakish. Although he was great,
300, yeah.
Yeah, although he was great, we expected him to be more of a Reggie White type of guy. And Aaron Donald ended up being that guy. Shout out to Louise, by the way. Me and him had that argument about a couple of years ago. Aaron Donald or Reggie White, and I chose Reggie White. We need to revisit that conversation a little bit, but I digress. But yeah, Suh is a heel for his time. Like I said, if it would have been 20 years or even 10 years before, they wouldn't even blink an eye. But because of the time we live in, that's the reason why. Not to mention, you don't help your case when you're stomping players. You are just, I'm looking for a kind word when you're just overbearing. You're kicking people in certain areas and stuff like that. You don't help your case for not being a dirty player. He's essentially like the Alex Karras of this generation. I don't know if you ever heard of Alex Karras. He's the defensive tackle, Hall of Famer that played for the Detroit Lions. He's essentially the Alex Karras / Joe Green of this era.
I would probably say Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah, just sprinkle a little bit of that on there.
Yeah.
Because the thing is this. If you go back and look at Joe Green and Alex Karras, a lot of the stuff they did was borderline cheap. Remember, Joe Green stomped on guys, used to hit guys, used to elbow guys in the face after the play, stuff like that. But yet he was beloved. They called him Mean Joe Green. Alex Karras the same way. Some of the things he would do was kind of cheap. So if he would have played in the NFL even 10 years earlier than he did, he probably wouldn't have blinked an eye during that time. But because he played in the modern day times a little bit more social media conscious, he was labeled a villain, which rightfully so. Like I said, he didn't help his case in a lot of the things that he did. Remember, him flying through the air and then kicking Aaron Rodgers. What he did to Jay Cutler, ran him down and just drug him through the ground.
Remember the Thanksgiving game against the Packers and the Texans when he hit Matt Schaub in the groin?
Yes, he hit Matt Schaub in the groin. So he didn't really help his case. But like I said, had it been 10 years earlier, we would have been screaming a different tune. But because of modern day time, he is considered an undisputed heel. I mean, even Tom Brady said he didn't like. He was like, "I'm not going to talk to you." He had that old school feel to him, but it's just like because he was so cheap at times, you hated it.
I feel like Champ. You know what he could have been. To your point, Champ, if he played back then in that era, he would have been Detroit Lions back then with the Ndamukong Suh would kind of been to some extent like the bad boys of the Detroit Pistons. If the bad boy Pistons with Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Dennis Rodman would be playing in today's game, we would view them as heels. But because of what they were, their uniqueness, what they brought to the game, how they invoked the Jordan rules, they're viewed as baby faces or tweeners.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at any evidence on how a player would have been viewed back then versus how he's viewed now, don't just look at Ndamukong Suh. Look at Draymond Green.
Yeah.
If Draymond Green would have played in the 90s or the 80s,
He would have fit right in
He would have
because
fit right in.
he would have fit right in because of that type of old school mentality, and plus he talks trash just like the rest of them.
Yeah,
He's our Dennis Rodman of our generation. But just like Dennis Rodman, he could be annoying or obnoxious, but at the same time, smart. Rodman doesn't. I mean, Rodman, just like with Rodman, Draymond Green is also smart, has a strong IQ as it pertains to basketball. Rodman as well too.
yes. But like I said, because him and Sue, unfortunately, they was born in a time where the game was a little bit more, I will say, family friendly than it was back in the 80s and the early 90s. Nowadays, they're concerned about more the image, not about the big hit. But yeah, you got to put Ndamukong Suh as a heel. He was a monstrous heel. He was the Vader of the NFL. Just being real, he was the Vader of the NFL. And he was monstrous. And at his best, he just could not be stopped. But yeah, I mean, you got to put him as the heel, and he was monstrous, but he was good about it. I mean, I don't know who was the bigger villain during their time. I don't know if it was him or James Harrison, but they both were just
Well, there
monsters.
was. I mean, Vontez Burfict would say otherwise.
Yeah, but
You got to include him, champ. I mean,
yeah, he was cheap as well, so I got to include him in that conversation.
I'm gonna get a lot of flack. I'm gonna piss off a lot of people by bringing him up. Tim Tebow.
He's a babyface. He's an undisputed babyface. Look, I understand that people these days, let me be fair, don't like certain views that he has. But he's squeaky clean. I mean, what more do you want from him? I mean, he goes to church. He was essentially the AC Green of the NFL. You remember AC Green? He didn't do a lot of things that his teammates did because of his Christianity and his faith. I think that people give Tim Tebow a lot of flack for that because when you are, I'll just go out. When you're not a prick, people are anxious to give you more chances than you really deserve. I'll say that again for the people who are watching. When you are not a prick, people are willing to give you more chances than you really deserve. Tim Tebow wasn't a quarterback by a long shot in the NFL, although he did make the playoffs. But the Broncos and the Jets was willing to take a chance on him. And then his old coach even brought him back for one last hurrah to play tight end, Urban Meyer, because he was that good of a guy. I mean, when you are a good man, you get a lot more opportunities than guys who are more talented than you, but that are not worth necessarily the headache that you are. And I understand people are going to get onto him about kneeling and always praying, but guess what, man? That's something that should be praised rather than looked down upon. If you are into your faith, into doing the right thing, into being the best man that you could possibly be, I think that should be applauded. But like I said, he got more chances than he should have because, he was a good man, but he wasn't necessarily a good quarterback. Two things can't be true at once. But there's nothing you can point at to Tim Tebow to say, I hate. When he was at Florida, he prayed with the kids. He would pray over the kids. He would do so many great things. And it's just like he would look. That was the guy that I looked at in 2006, 2007. Say, if I could be like any person, that's who I would be like. Squeaky clean image. And it was authentic. It was authentic. And for you to be squeaky clean in a place like Florida, the Florida Gators were concerned, And considering how much controversy came out of that team alone in college, for you to be that squeaky clean and that talented all at the same time, no dirt upon you, no bad news, great teammate, great person. How can you not want that person to succeed? Like I said, I think that they kind of did him a little dirty in Denver because he did make the playoffs. What I would have done if I was Denver, I said, look, we finna sign Peyton Manning. You need to sit behind him and learn.
Well, he did go to New Orleans and try to learn behind Tom Brady, but unfortunately that didn't work out.
Yeah, but I wish that they would have just let him sit out and learn behind Peyton Manning. I think that would have did him some good.
What did him dirty was New York, champ. No, yeah. I'm serious. At some point during that season, didn't matter whether the Jets were going to make the playoffs or not. At some point, I might as well throw him into the fire, because if I'm getting this type of production from Mark Sanchez, who during that season became the butt fumble, by the way, led the NFL in turnovers that year. At some point, whether you wanted Tim Tebow to come here or not, just throw him in, just let him play a couple of games and then go from there. Because here's the thing, champ, how the way they did him dirty. Remember, they made Tim Tebow gain weight to be a gimmicky gadget type of dude. They made him to be like a fullback, a tight end, a punt protector, a lot of things. And when they brought Tebow in, it was going to be it was going to be a fire day for the media, particularly the New York media, because the moment Mark Sanchez started stinking up the joint, wouldn't we want to hear Tebow at some point in the game playing?
Yeah.
Champ, I have him as a tweener. The reason why I have Tebow as a tweener, I would not say I hate Tim Tebow. I would never say that. But I can understand people feeling envy or jealous of Tim Tebow. And I'm sorry, champ, that is fair to say, even though you can say, hey, nepotism, it's happened before, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that should happen. That doesn't mean I have to like it or condone it. The fact of the matter is, champ, you brought in Tim Tebow to play a tight end, a position he has never played in his life. Something that he should have adjusted once he finished college. The only reason why you brought him there because of his relationship with Urban Meyer. And then, of course, where is Tim Tebow from? Jacksonville. So, of course, what better way to promote and sell tickets by having the hometown kid, Tim Tebow? Not to mention, to your point, you bring up Tim Tebow's Christianity and faith. So is Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is also a man of God. Who knows? I mean, they can have Bible study and prayers and things like that. They need to call you in for Bible study as well, champ. I mean, Pastor Champ. But I digress. But the thing is, champ, there's jealousy with Tim Tebow. That's why I say he's a tweener. Because you look at Florida. Yeah, he was a huge key contributor to that to the national championships. He definitely was, champ. But at the same time, let's not act as if Tim Tebow turned chicken shit and made a chicken salad. He did have the Pouncey brothers. He did have Percy Harvin. You know, bad or good, Aaron Hernandez. So he did have talent to work with. Trent, shout out to our guy Trent. He's made that argument before, just how loaded that team was. And then I just think the reason why I say tweener, champ, I just think he's gotten so much attention. I just think he's just gotten so much attention on the NFL level. And yes, I have no problem with anyone following the Lord, anyone believing in God and doing things of that nature. And Tim Tebow, by all accounts, is a great guy. But champ, he's gotten opportunities, several opportunities that so many people would beg to have. I mean, after the NFL, after Denver, okay, he goes to New York. That didn't work out. I put that on the Jets organization for the reasons I mentioned. They sabotaged him. Okay, so he goes to New England. He's the backup behind Tom Brady. Couldn't even make a roster spot. Then he goes to Philadelphia. Couldn't finish the season. Didn't work out for him in Philadelphia. Then he tries out for baseball, champ. Let's not forget baseball. To me, Tim Tebow, I look at the poster boy for opportunities. And he's gotten opportunities. And look, I'm not knocking Tim Tebow for capitalizing on the opportunities. Heck, if it were us, we would capitalize it just like Tim Tebow. I say he's a tweener because I feel like he's gotten opportunities that I just don't think he deserves. And there are so many other people that are more talented than him that haven't gotten the opportunities like him. But because it's Tim Tebow's aura or platform, because of his Christianity and faith, another reason why people like him, that overshadows his play. And I thought sports to me was a meritocracy, champ.
Yeah, but I'm gonna just be real. Let's talk about me and you. If I was a prick, would you be as anxious to work with me as you were now? Probably not.
It depends on what I mean. Look, if you're a prick, but at the same time, if you're productive enough, I would tolerate it.
But the thing is that makes you a lot anxious to work with someone, and we've seen it before. And the thing is, that's why I said, when you are a great man, despite your talent being a fifth of what everybody else is, people are more anxious to work with you because they know you're going to work hard and put your best foot forward. And yeah, people are going to say, well, he got opportunities that other people kind of shouldn't have. Okay. The thing is, everybody knew when he came in, although he may not be the most talented guy, he was going to put his best foot forward. And he was not going to make me as a person look like an idiot that I brought him here. Even at his shot at tight end, he did his best, and then he acknowledged, and then when he failed, he held himself accountable. When he got cut from Jacksonville, he said, I didn't do enough to stay. I didn't do enough. Baseball, I didn't do enough. What can you ask for a person other than, hey, I'm taking accountability for the fact that I didn't do enough in order to impress the people that are trying to pay me in order to do something? And like I said, and I hate to be regurgitating, but like I said, when you are not a prick, people are more anxious to work with you than when you are. The thing is, he got more opportunities than AB. AB's a prick. Nobody wants to work with him.
Nobody trusts him.
Nobody trusts you. When you are a good man or a good woman, people want to work with you off the strength of your character alone. People love that about Tebow. People knew that he was going to put his, and the thing is, although he had a huge aura, although he cast a huge shadow in every organization he went through, they knew that he was never going to go to the media when the starting quarterback started struggling and say, I need to be started. They knew that wasn't going to happen.
Because that's not who he is.
Exactly.
But the thing is, champ, fine. If he is a great person, a great guy, but doesn't it get to a point when you try working with him and you feel like, come on, man, this dude, come on, we've went over this play countless time and time again. And the player, they may never say it, the coach or player may never say it, but they feel like this dude, man, he's not improving, he's not getting any better. As far as I'm concerned, we wasting our time with him. Whether people may admit that or not, don't be surprised they faking it. And remember, let's not forget, champ, Tim Tebow was not known as a great practice player.
Yeah, he wasn't. But like I said, when people know your character and what you bring to the table as far as character is concerned, they're more willing to work with you than when they're not. And like I said, we live in a society where where everybody wants to be the villain. Everybody wants to be the look at me guy. Everybody wants to be. Everybody wants to see an authentic good guy win. You want to see the milk drinker. Everybody, it's all good and gravy for the guy at the bar to be partying, dancing on the bar, acting a fool. That attracts the attention, but it attracts the wrong type of attention. People want to see that authentic good guy win. The problem with people hating Russell Wilson is they don't think his good guy persona is authentic. With Tebow, that was authentic. They wanted to see him win because it was pure authentic. He wasn't faking it in the eyes of so many. So you want to see the guy who drinks milk and go to ice cream shops on his time off and play with the kids. You want to see him win. Who doesn't want to see that win? In the world of hurricanes, you want to see this guy who has a solid foundation wins. So I don't blame him for giving me though. I'm going to just be honest. There were some times in my life I wasn't necessarily good at a lot of stuff, but I got an opportunity because guess what? I know this guy's going to show up every day. He's going to show up early, leave late, and do everything he can in order for him to learn what he needs to learn. When it didn't work out, guess what? They had to show me the door, but guess what? They wasn't happy about it because they knew I was a try-hard guy.
At least you gave it your all.
Yes.
And time out for the record, I'm not accusing Tim Tebow of not giving any effort. Reason why I say tweener is because I think the reason why he's gotten far in life is because of the aura and because of his platform and voice. And I think with players, whether they'll admit it or not, they'll look at him and say, from a talent perspective, what did he really contribute? Okay, Denver, let's not forget what he did in Denver. He took over for that team. They were 1-4. They were able to make the playoffs. He did help them win that playoff game in which he threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Demaryius Thomas, God rest his soul. I just think the reason why tweener champ, don't be surprised if someone said tweener with Tebow, is because of all the reasons that I mentioned. Jealousy and envy because they feel like he's gotten far in life because of nepotism and because of his faith. And the other problem that I have with a champ, and it's not to knock Tebow. Tebow, when it comes to his Christianity, his faith is real. But the problem is when somebody who may not be known for religious or faith, they get judged harshly. Like, look at with Kyrie Irving. We had constant conversations with Kyrie Irving. I believe a lot of people look at him as a babyface. And look, with Kyrie Irving, even though he has different views, he doesn't bring the controversy that Tim Tebow does, but he gets bashed on. Sorry if I'm confusing it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. He gets bashed on, but at the same time, you have to think about the stuff that that contributed to you getting bashed on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Last I checked, Tim Tebow didn't post no videotape about certain things on his Twitter. Last I checked, when asked about certain stuff, he addressed it in a calm manner. And last I checked as well, he didn't come into this place where you told the people that you was gonna be anxious to come back, and you didn't. You came in here burning sage.
Not to mention you wanted to leave Boston. It was reported that you wanted to leave Boston. I just think with Tim Tebow, champ, Tim Tebow, I understand your point, babyface, but tweener, I say tweener because I think the media, the public, they look at him as like the darling, the media darling, and he's gotten so many opportunities because of what he accomplished at the University of Florida, followed by everything else that he has to the table. Mm-hmm. And because he's a great man, because he's a man of faith.
Hey, man, that is the perfect guy that you will feel safe for your sister or your daughter or even your mom to go out with, because they're going to be home safe, and this guy is not going to be out there with this foolishness. So, hey, man, that's like I consider a baby face, because guess what, man? Like I said,
Am I wrong though?
You're not wrong, not at all. I'm just saying through my perspective, that was a guy who I said I wish I could be more like. You
Well,
know,
John Elway, he did say it himself. That's somebody who I want marrying my daughter.
yeah. But that's a guy who I really said I wish I could be more like this dude. Because, for him to be loud about your faith, to be loud about everything that you believe in, it's a lot of things it's hard for me to be loud about. So it's just like for you to put everything loudly and say it loudly. And like I said, although your faith and your Christianity is loud, your humbleness is just as loud. But like I said, who doesn't want to see a guy like that win? Who doesn't? And so, yeah, you're going to get, although we love these Hurricanes, we all want to see the good guy win. And yeah, I think he got a lot of opportunities that he shouldn't have. And guess what? I got a lot of opportunities that I shouldn't have because simply off of character alone. But when you have that character, it carries you far. It's evident. It's evident when you look at him that character will carry you as far further than your talent will. Because look at what he's doing now with College Game Day. Look at some of the guys who are better than him in college in past years, but they'll never get a job in college. In College Game Day. Some of these guys will never get college jobs for the media, working with the media, or even coaching.
Because Tim Tebow obviously he has communication skills. And last time I checked, Tim Tebow will not put any organization in any predicament.
No, he won't. And so if I could trust you with all of these assets, if I could trust you not to put my organization into a bad situation, if I could trust you not to get in trouble with the law, if I could trust you not to say the wrong thing in front of the media, if I could trust you to smile and giggle even when things are not going your way, that's half the battle right there. Because guess what? Investing this kind of money in you is going to be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think when you have a guy like that, you want to see him win, so you give him every opportunity in order to win. It's going to cause some jealousy, but I can say the same thing about anything in anybody else's life. When somebody sees something in you, they want to see you win. I'm gonna give you stuff that I'm not necessarily going to give these other guys, because guess what? These guys are not going to take care of something like you are. You know what I'm saying?
Is that how you kind of look at it with Bronny? Because people may feel like the only reason why he's in this position is because of his father.
Yeah, and the thing is, you want to see him win. Not to mention the guy had health problems.
True that.
He had health problems. He's proven in the G League that he can play. You can talk about nepotism all you want to. That's been going on for years. And he got drafted in the second round. It'd be different. It'd be different if he got drafted first overall. It'd be different. The guys who was drafted before and after him, they did that since. They both averaging less than 3 points a game.
Okay.
So everybody's sitting here making a big fuss about Bronny James. He's in here because of his father. Okay, what are those guys that were drafted after him doing? Nothing. What are the guys that were drafted? You got guys that were drafted in the first round before him that are not doing anything. And we're still talking about how horrible Bronny is. And he was drafted in the second. You have first round busts out there not scoring any points for their teams right about now. But yet we're still talking about Bronny. How backwards is that at this point?
But that tells you about the media, champ. And look, I agree with Trent on this one. And he brings up great points about Florida during the time when they won the national championships. That squad was loaded. Now, were they as loaded as like the 2001 Miami Hurricanes? I wouldn't go that far. But when you think of the offensive line, when you think of the tight end, when you think of Percy Harvin, when you think of the weapons, the offense that they had with Urban Meyer, who Champ and I, it's obviously, as it pertains to Urban Meyer, heel. But when I look at Tim Tebow, I look at what you had around you as well. And I look at the envy and the jealousy. And I also look at the fact how people make the argument that you're the greatest college football player ever. And even though Tim Tebow does have all the accomplishments, Heisman, Maxwell Award, but I understand Trent's argument for Cam Newton. Even though Cam did for only 1 year compared to Tebow, But if you look at the offense that Auburn had, it was nowhere near Florida's. They didn't have that offensive line. I mean, I can name you the wide receivers. They had Darvin Adams, Emory Blake, Terrell Zachary, Cody Burns, Russ Soul, the tight end, Philip Lutzen-Kirkin. They had Michael Dyer there, who was a true freshman. They had who, by the way, broke Bo Jackson's freshman record for rushing yards. They had Mario Fannin and Ontario McCaleb and Cam in 1 year, even with controversy that he was in as well, because let's not forget the play-for-play scandal, he and his father, because that was the reason why his father, Cecil Newton, did not attend the Heisman Trophy. He won Heisman, he won national championship, he won everything, and he had to go up against competition. Let's not forget the comeback victory he had against Alabama. Let's not forget the dominant performances he had against South Carolina at home and in the SEC championship game. Despite all of that.
Interesting fact about that Auburn team, outside of Nick Fairley, no one on the offensive side of the ball that played on that Auburn team has played one snap in the NFL.
None. That tells you how great Cam was. And also, a couple of years later, they fired Gene Chizik and moved on with Gus Malzahn, who ended up getting Auburn to a national championship in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think with Tim Tebow, look, I can understand why people may say babyface because of how great he is as a person, human being. If he's the type of ambassador you want for your company, he's your guy. But I can understand tweener for all the reasons that I mentioned, because of the fact that there is a lot of jealousy with Tim Tebow and because of his faith, Christianity, as well as other things he has that overshadows a lot of things, and how he's gotten opportunities that I don't think he deserved because of the fact of how not good he was as a player. I mean, I can't ignore the fact that he was an awful practice player. I can't ignore the throwing mechanics. I can't ignore what happened in Jacksonville, even though it was Urban Meyer. And yes, he is from Jacksonville, but it was a horrible message to the team that you brought this guy in when there were other tight ends you could have looked at in free agency, and you brought him there. So I can understand it from your standpoint, and you can also understand it from my standpoint.
It's neat.
One last babyface or heel. Dennis Rodman. He's a tweener.
Yeah. he is a tweener.
Champ, if social media came back then during the time of Dennis Rodman's time, in his prominent days, he probably would have made a ton of money. Multi-millionaire, maybe multi-billionaire. The reason why I say tweener, because he's fun. He's crazy because of the bad boy days and the hairstyles, the piercings, and all that stuff. But if you're a woman, Dennis Rodman is the type of person you want to go out with. And when you look at Dennis Rodman's dating life, Carmen Electra, Madonna. I mean, he never dated this woman, but there was pictures of him and Toni Braxton, I think at the VMAs before. Hey, listen, we talk about Lou Williams, Magic City. He had to watch the Last Dance documentary to pull off what Dennis Rodman did, because remember the bubble? Remember when Lou Williams went to Magic City? He had to watch Dennis Rodman, because remember Dennis Rodman during the middle of the season, he was in Vegas for 48 days.
It was 48 hours.
And on top of that, when he was in Chicago, he was as big and as prominent, believe it or not, as Michael. And let's not forget and off the court, how the way he was as a promoter. Let's not remember the book he wrote, Bad as I Want to Be. And of course, there was one certain outfit that he had? And how the way he was entertaining people, how the way all the women were adoring him, Cindy Crawford. Go watch the video of Dennis Rodman and Cindy Crawford. Go watch all the other things with Dennis Rodman, man. He was a tweener, and Dennis is all about peace. Whoever thought that Dennis Rodman, of all people, would get President Trump and Kim Jong-un together? Does that actually happen without Dennis Rodman? Probably
No,
not.
no. Oh man, I ain't gonna lie, man. Look, I had Dennis Rodman's jersey. I love Dennis Rodman, man. I had his shoes when it came to Converse, and I had his shoes when he went to Nike. I had both of them. Man, look, Dennis Rodman is a tweener only because of some of the antics that I would say the perception of the antics. Remember when he headbutted the referee? Never forget that one. Not to mention when he kicked the photographer on the sideline. Those things kind of make you heelish. Not to mention when you was at the Bad Boy Pistons, you had a bad boy image then.
Or him
But
headbutting the referee.
yeah, I remember that. But the thing is, when you think about his personality, he's so bad he's cool. Like I wish I could go out and just, be a part of the NWO. Man, I wish I could go out and just run after a basketball game, go out on a date with Carmen Electra, bro. You wish you could do stuff like that, man.
Did you hear
I
the
mean,
story about what Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman did on the court together?
yeah. But the
We get
rumor had
we
it that he did. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Rumor had it that he dated Jeannie Buss as well. So he was out there. He was out there switching them up like cable subscriptions, my man. So it was crazy. So I
You know the
want to.
reason. You know the reason why Madonna dumped him.
Yeah, I heard about that, but hey, this is a family show. But it was
Because again, Dennis didn't want to be Madonna's baby daddy.
yeah. But it was, man. Look, man, for your dating life to be like that, for you to be a champion on two of the most historic teams in NBA history, you be a part of the NWO, plus your dating life is cool, man. And the thing is, the reason why he was so beloved in Chicago, he was more accessible than Michael Jordan. He was more accessible. He was like a man of the people. It's just like Jordan was the Teflon Don versus, Dennis Rodman was a man of the people. He out there, hanging out at the club, signing the autographs, partying, drinking kamikazes. Like I said, he was so bad, he was cool, man. Hey, man, look. If I could hang out with any three people in my lifetime, I've always said this. If I could hang out with any three people and just party for just like 1 or 2 days, it would have to be Uncle Luke, Dennis Rodman, and Charles Barkley.
For me, it's Dennis Rodman and Mike Tyson.
So, well, I would love to see that. That would be crazy. But I have to say, Uncle Luke, Dennis Rodman, and Charles Barkley. Them are the three guys that I would love to go to a bar with and have one of them crazy nights with, man. That would be epic. But to your point, man, I gotta say Tweener. Because like I said, he was so bad, he was cool. He was the Attitude Era, really before the Attitude Era really kicked in. And he was perfect for the NWO. I mean, he was perfect being a part of that.
Yeah.
And it's so ironic that during a certain match at Bash at the Beach, he was the one being perceived as the bad guy, especially when you consider some of the stuff that happened off the court. But I have to say Tweener because, you're going to see, the kicking of the referee, the the kicking of the photographer, the headbutting of the referee. You're gonna see things like that, and that's gonna add to the heelish thing. But when you think about the personality as a whole, you really wasn't, like I said, it was so unique and the look was so good. And it's just like there was nobody who quite like Dennis Rodman before nor since. And
Not to mention what he did for the LGBTQ community.
yeah, and he was in fact he was the first time, I was just gonna put it out there. The first time I ever watched the RuPaul show was because of Dennis Rodman. I want to see him on there. So,
Yeah.
remember that didn't come, back then that was considered, not kid friendly. But I stayed up and broke a few rules just so I could see Dennis Rodman on it. So yeah, that was a bridging of the gap, if you will. And it was good to see. When you look back on it, you see things that kind of bridges gaps. And Dennis Rodman being on that show, him being as big as he was, him just being on that show was huge back then. And if that were if that was to happen now on a show, it would be a lot of controversy, much more than it was even back then, because the internet is very, very loud. Like, it was controversy back then, but people understood. But the controversy now that was stir up is crazy.
He would have made a lot of money back then if there was social media back in the 90s.
Yeah, but yeah, I watched that show just to see. I watched that show when I found out about it. I'm like, I'm going to have to break a few rules tonight in order to see Dennis Rodman on there. Like I said, Dennis was one of my favorite players growing up, man. Like I said, especially considering how I was when I was a child.
I know Mama Champ was not Dennis Rodman's cup of tea.
No, Mom hated Dennis Rodman. The thing was, Mom and Dad put me in ties. I wore ties and button ups and sweater vests to school. So, and I had about 5 pairs of loafers when I went to school. So you can imagine Dennis Rodman, Allen Iverson, Nick Van Exel, some of my favorite players who was the bad boys. They didn't like me liking those guys. So considering, me being all button up and stuff like that, having to learn how to tie a tie and stuff like that when I was a child, to liking Dennis Rodman because he's so bad that he's cool, liking the NWO, loving the Attitude Era, loving Pearl Jam, loving Nirvana and stuff like that. That wasn't necessarily considered popular. So yeah.
I think with Dennis, the reason why he dyed all his hair dyed his hair is because of the movie Demolition Man. He saw the movie Demolition Man. He went to the hair salon. He told the hairstylist, "I want my hair dyed blonde, and I want my hair like a mohawk, like Wesley Snipes' character." And Dennis is just fun. I actually saw Dennis Rodman one time in person at the mall. I was at the Livingston Mall in Livingston, New Jersey. I think his agent lives around in Livingston at that time, which is not far away from where I live. And my brother taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Bro, that's Dennis Rodman." And I'm like, "Get out of here." But he told me, "No, that's Dennis Rodman." So I look very closely. I see a tall dude, about 6'6", 6'7", wearing a Rodman jersey. And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's Dennis Rodman." And he's like, for me, Dennis, he's relatable for me because Dennis is known. Back then, people may find it hard to believe Dennis Rodman back then, he was a shy, quiet introvert. If you watch the documentary, Rodman, for better or for worse, and Jamie Foxx did a great job with the narrating, Dennis was known as quiet. Back then, his sisters growing up, they were the well-known family. They were well-known compared to Rodman. Dennis came from obscurity. And Dennis and I, we do share a lot in common as far as being shy, quiet, introverts, as far as not talking, not communicating as much. Dennis also went through a lot of personal problems as well. Obviously, the situation at the Palace situation, remember him with the gun in the car, contemplating suicide. And the only reason why he said was, I wasn't in that scenario. I wasn't trying to kill Dennis Rodman. I was trying to kill the old one so that the new one could come out. In other words, he got tired of being the person that he was, the shy, quiet, introvert follower. He wanted to be a leader. He wanted to be his own man. He wanted to do things under his own terms. And he was really going through a lot at that time because losing Chuck Daly, who departed from the Detroit Pistons, also at the time, his marriage, which ultimately led to a divorce, and the woman of his child taking full custody. So there were a lot of factors around that time. But Dennis, man, he's cool. He's fun, man. He's just exuberant. Him and Mike Tyson are the two people I would like to hang out with or have a pod with. That's just me.
Yeah, man. And yeah, remember, if you look back on that documentary as well, he would go to the bar with the guys and order a glass of milk, and they'd play pinball games all the time. So, yeah.
Do you remember how many shots of Jägermeisters he had one time in Chicago?
27, I think.
He would do that and then get up the next morning and practice and go play.
27?
Hey, listen, we talked about Dwight Howard with his candy addiction and how he was able to produce. Do you know that is crazy though? And even Michael said, "I'm surprised that Dennis would live past 40 because he thought he was going to be burnt on both ends of the candle."
Yeah, but those the ones who live forever, man. I'm just being real, man. And they have fun, man. So that was hey man, Dennis Rodman was one of the guys that, like I said, you hated that you couldn't be like. Like I said, man, when I was a kid, I was wearing ties to school, little sweater vests. I was wearing cardigans and little stuff like that. My parents dressed me up in. You're gonna need to be ready for the corporate world. All right, cool. But Allen Iverson, between Allen Iverson, Nick Van Exel, and Dennis Rodman, those were my favorite players in order to look at. Like I said, the bravado that they had was something serious. And it's just like I said, they were so bad that they're cool. Like I said, it was the attitude era before the attitude era, if you want me to be honest with you.
All right, champ, we got last two subjects, so let's just try to finish it as quickly as possible. Favorite Lita moment? I would have to say the match between her and Trish Stratus, the main event one, which that was a great one. But I gotta admit, the promos that Lita and Kane cut with her and Gene Snitsky. Remember when Lita was carrying Kane's child? And then Lita announced to Kane that at Unforgiven, Kane's opponent would be Shawn Michaels, because remember what happened, what Kane did to Shawn Michaels the day after Bad Blood, between that Hell in the Cell match Shawn Michaels had with Triple H.
Yeah.
My other favorite Lita moment, her and Edge and John Cena. I won't go as specific, but Edge and Lita in a bed in the ring. I think you know what I'm referring to, champ.
Yeah.
And her return back to the WWE. So those were some of my favorite moments from Lita.
Oh man, Lita, man. I had your posters on my wall in my football locker. Not gonna lie, when I used to go out there for practice, I used to rub the poster like twice, and then I go out there and practice. So it's just like so. I say her debut with S.A. Rios. I don't think people remember that too much. But that red outfit she had on was to die for. So I'll say her debut. I'll say her time in Team Extreme. That was beautiful. Her and her rivalry with Trish Stratus. And her winning the women's championship.
Mm-hmm.
The feud with Chyna, because she felt like Chyna, God rest her soul, was underestimating her. Because remember, Chyna had went from wrestling the gentlemen to come back to wrestle with the ladies. So she felt like that Chyna was underestimating her for a minute. But I have to say her debut, because when you saw her, you never seen me personally, I've been following life, but I've never seen a woman luchador move like she does in the ring and out of it. And I think Team Extreme, I think her debut and proving that she could do the Hurricane Rana things of that nature, that was something to behold. She still look good, man. She aged real well, man. Real beautiful woman. Beautiful.
Her and Trish Stratus, yeah.
Beautiful one. So, and the role that she played when she was with Edge, with her being the heel, not to mention, the loser leaves town match when, she tied up Matt Hardy in the ring ropes, make sure he couldn't escape.
Yeah.
That was a moment for the ages, man. But I always say her debut because when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, that's what it is right there. So yeah.
But I told you before, Chad, Edge and Lita, remember when they were in the bed together in the ring, man? I'm like, Vince McMahon, what the hell are you thinking with the creativity, with all that stuff? No wonder why Mama Champ can't stand Vince McMahon.
Hey, yo, I was lucky that night. I was over one of my homegirls' house, and all of us was having a little wrestle party, and we was watching it there. And I think that it wasn't necessarily that right there. It was the Jerry the King Lawler. People talk about good old JR, but Jerry. Oh man.
By the way, we'll do him next week for the pod.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. Jerry the King Lawler, man. As much as we give good old JR credit, we have to give Jerry the King Lawler because when the ladies would come out, hey, for those of y'all who are watching it, y'all know how Booker T acts on NXT when the women come out,
particularly Jada Parker.
Yes, put that times a million, and then you get Jerry the King Lawler. That's how he used to act.
Oh yeah. Do you remember the one in which Eric Bischoff introduced Vince McMahon to the woman? They're not lesbians, they're bisexual lesbians. And then you hear Jerry the King Lawler's voice.
Jerry. Oh man.
You remember that, champ?
I remember that. Like it was like I said, Jerry the King. I know one thing he used to hate when people used to say Burger King, but Jerry the King Lawler, when the ladies used to come out, you for to hear some colorful commentary when they come out. Like I said, Booker T has that colorful commentary, but he did not have anything on the King Lawler when the women would come out. And when Lita would come out or Stacy Keibler would come out, oh, you for to hear the King, he for to act the fool.
Last but not least, champ, favorite the weekend track. I have Party Monster, and Party Monster. I love the weekend. Some of his tracks. There's that track, Loving the Crew with Drake. Try Me. I do love Starboy. I love all the other collabs he's had, whether if it's Drake or Travis Scott or whoever. But and of course Future. But Weeknd is one of my favorite artists I listen to. Other favorite current artists besides Travis. But what's yours?
Wicked Games. That's one of them songs. Go listen to it. Remember Me with Wiz Khalifa. Go listen to it. Starboy. That was good. Man, there's so many of them, man. It's the Weeknd is his voice is unique.
Heartless. Let's not forget Heartless. That was a hell of a track. Heartless.
Yeah. Heartless was one hell of a track. That was one hell of a track, man. But I gotta say those. Man. Remember Me, Wicked Games, and that whole track because let's not forget that whole Christian Grey soundtrack when he mixed that in with that one. So
right.
Yeah, that was pretty cool what he did for the soundtrack. Wasn't a big fan of the movie, but it was cool what he did on the soundtrack. But man, one of the most revolutionary artists in today. And let's not forget the heels. Heels, yeah, heels. So yeah,
Yeah.
the weekend. I never forget. I don't know which album that he did that on, as sometimes my memory bothers me a little bit.
I'll
But
look it up for you.
remember when he had all that surgery, it seems like he had wrapped himself up and he had his lips puckered and stuff like that. I don't know. It was very, very unique about what he did with that whole act that he did. I don't know
Oh,
what album that was. Uh,
it says here. Oh, you're talking about the altered appearance in which the full face
yeah,
bandages.
yeah,
It's called back to his blinding lights video. The blinding
yeah,
lights video.
yeah. So that was a unique thing about what he did. It was like, what's going on with the weekend? You kind of thought he was having one of those little moments, but you realize it was part of the act at first. It's kind of, still kind of naive. It's like, oh, okay, he really didn't have that surgery. It was just a big old act of sorts. So that was
Well, it wasn't
that
as bad as this.
it wasn't. So yeah. So
And you got this one right here too.
yeah. Um
Columbus, Georgia's own.
One thing about that picture with me throwing up the peace sign, and when you look across there, the view, that's the Riverwalk in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh,
So
really?
if you look in the background, that was one of the original steel mills that was here. So I took that picture with one of my homegirls. Shout out to them. They took that picture of me when I was training out there at the Riverwalk this past week. So big shout out because they got the perfect angle on that one. That's how come I put it as a profile picture. But across that street, it used to be the industry district, and they turned it into the Riverwalk there. So that's why when you look at the background, that's why you see things that is reminiscent of old steel mills, because that's exactly what it was. But that's actually the Riverwalk where I'm at, where I was training at. So big shout out to my homie. She took the picture when I was down there, and that's a good picture, by the way. So regardless how much I'm laughing, I didn't expect you to show it on the show, but I love that picture. That's a very, very special picture, man. It shows the beauty of the background and not just that, how far I've came. So that was actually a picture I took right after graduation. So that was special, man. Regardless how much I'm laughing, it's a special picture. As far as the other one goes, that's what happens when you don't do your skin treatments on time. Don't do that to yourself, people. Don't do that to yourself.
Well, there's nothing bad in this one.
No. Oh yeah, that's Cruella de Vil right there, boy. That's ugly as sin right there, baby. That's ugly as sin.
Well, fellas, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. Appreciate Undisputed World Champ, 4-time college degree, man. Proud of you with all your success. I know you got a big show tomorrow night on the Undisputed podcast. Tell them where to follow you at, brother.
Number one, I gotta say this. PSP, thank you for always inviting me. Thank you for always giving me the platform in order to speak. The first person who gave me an opportunity to go on a podcast was PSP. And I did not know how the hell I was going to get through a podcast. So thank Pete. So when you see, he's the Dr. Dre to my DOC, I would say. So, when you think about Undisputed GOAT, when you think about me on TikTok, man, look at PSP, and I got to give you your flowers every single time I'm on here, because if it wasn't for you, I would not be, on podcasts, because I didn't know what a podcast meant. You not only taught me how to, not only taught me how to be a guest on a podcast, you taught me how to do my own. And now I'm getting better with the graphics, getting better with managing my own stuff. So big ups to you, man. So and big ups to you on 100,000, man. A lot of people work a lifetime and don't get there, man. So, man, while you're giving other people their flowers, to include myself, make sure you reach behind and give yourself a big pat on the back, because, I know how hard you work. the audience or people like that may not know, but I talk to you throughout the day when I'm at work, when I'm doing my projects. So I know when you hit my phone and say, "Oh, is this it?" and you're talking to me about a lot of the concepts that you're doing and what we do every week, I see the hard work that you're doing. So for me to see it and then see the final product every single week, and it's just like, okay, now I got to step my game up so I can be just like PSP, just like my brother. So it's just like, yeah, and look, you people may not believe when we say this. If there was any evidence that I could say content creating was hard work, point right to this man right here, because he works on his craft. And that is the reason why you get this product that you see every single week, whether it be with me and BRF, whether it be with me and another guest. When you see this final product every single week, just know that this man right here, right next to me, has worked hard throughout the entire week in order to make this one show happen once a week. This is a lot of hours and a lot of headaches of hard work. So big ups to PSP, man. I got to give you your flowers. It's always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be here. I salute you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Yeah, man, like you said, man, very well. Now I see why you've been spending a lot of time with Mama PSP, because of the word vocabulary skills, man. You just gotta work. You just gotta grind. I mean, nothing's gonna be given to you. You gotta earn it. And like I said, man, I've said it before. I don't know. I don't think people understand or realize how much hard work we as content creators do. I mean, I have to literally spend practically the whole day clipping, editing, doing clips, shorts, trying to come up with as many ideas or topics for the show. It's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, we're trying to give you the best type of content and entertainment we can give you. And I would not get this far in life if it were not for the panel, for Champ, for BRF, for Brendan from the Block, Maria, Hot Take, Kenny, Casual, everyone else along the way that has helped me as far as content creation and stuff. So I do want to pat myself on the shoulder, but at the same time, I also have to give credit where credit is due. I didn't do this all by myself. I want to make sure that people along the way gets credit, because I would not get this far if it were not for them as well. And also people who helped me out along the way, family members, friends. I know some friends and family members were upset with me taking time off, hanging out from them, but that's because I'm that serious. I'm that determined when it comes to my craft. This is something that I want to do. This is something that I have something. You know, I may not be good with a lot of things in life, but if there's one thing I look at and that I am definitely proud of, definitely something that I take very seriously, and that's the podcast thing, man. So I'm very happy with the success with the podcast. Yes, we now at 100,000, but I want to continue to grow and get better. And you never know if I'm probably going to hit 1,000,000.
A million.
And on that note, please go follow Champ, everyone else on IG and TikTok, as well as me. Definitely there's going to be some clips tomorrow and much more. But everyone else, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next week, we're definitely going to discuss the post play-in, playoffs, so much more. Few weeks away from the NFL draft. Can't wait for that as well. But enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe. God bless and peace.